There are some problems here. Sorry, big time.
I'm so upset. Oh my God.
The guy! Welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, John Iadarola with you guys on what we hope is a lovely Friday evening for everyone. We've got a lot of news for you, of course, as always. So Abdul El-Sayed has driven the right wing crazy now, along with the establishment. It's funny how similar they are. There is devastating story out of the West Bank, of course, and we're going to talk about the hypocrisy of how the mainstream media treats those two different things. If you're killed in the West Bank, it's no big deal at all. You're only a Palestinian or an American. And then Israel is a spy in the UN, of course. But one piece of news that is a little bit devastating, Iran might not want a peace deal. If that's the case, buckle up, brace for a lot more impacts. Okay. John, we're gonna get started with the Abdul story. I'll get it started and then you're gonna take it from there.
Sounds good.
Abdul El-Sayed won in Michigan, and that has driven the right-wing media nuts. You're gonna be shocked to find out that they decided to go with a bigoted approach. Wait, is that really fair? Well, let's watch.
It looks like Abdul El-Sayed, who is an unholy alliance Islamopascist and a communist at the same time. He's got the two tools in the toolkit, won the primary by a sliver last night.
And it scares me as an American citizen to think that after 9/11, this guy's best friend says that America deserved 9/11. And to me, Mike Rogers is the guy that would be the first responder going to help the victims of 9/11, and El-Sayed is the guy that would have been friends of the guys flying the plane. This is as clear as it gets.
Look at all these clips. Look at all these clips. We don't have time. I mean,
under the idea that all people are created equal, all men, but that only meant certain men.
Whoa, what are you talking? I don't know if that's Arabic or not. You dirty bastard. You dirty scum, you absolute rat. You parasite.
Abdul El-Sayed is a radical advocate for Muslims, including terrorists. But El-Sayed is, of course, a radical Muslim. He has significant ties to Dearborn. He campaigns there all the time.
He has significant ties to Dearborn, Michigan. That's a charge that makes you guilty of something? You know that's inside this country. And nobody in Dearborn did anything wrong. He just says it like a bunch of Muslims that live there. And he says he's a radical Muslim. That makes sense because Ben Shapiro is a radical Jew. Oh wait, you're not allowed to say that, but you are allowed to say whatever you want about Muslims apparently. But mainstream media, John, has been going nuts over these comments. I'm hearing they haven't and they don't care at all. In fact, they generally join it. And is it possible to be a fascist and a communist at the same time, let alone a made up word like Islamofascist, John?
I don't even know what some of this is supposed to mean. Yeah, he has, I guess maybe you can be Muslim, but you can't have ties to places where Muslims live in the United States or something. I guess that's automatically bad. You'll know he doesn't say why it's bad because he doesn't have a reason that it's bad. They call him a radical Muslim. You'll note that they don't like show policy positions he has that are radically Muslim. They don't quote him saying anything radically Muslim. He's a radical Muslim because he's a Muslim, and that's the only kind of Muslim that they will allow. It's the only religion that you could just automatically say, not only are you the radical form of that, but you're also a terrorist, automatically. They're all calling him, at the nicest ones say he's a supporter of Islamic terrorism. Some, Laura Loomer, just say he is an Islamic terrorist himself. He's a jihadist. I've watched quite a bit of Abdul El-Sayed. Other than the fact that I know that he is technically Muslim, I've almost never heard him say anything about it. Like I literally don't know where any of it's coming from, except that their brains have been rotted by identity politics, and that's literally all they have to go with. And so they attack him not only about calling him a radical or whatever. Also, by the way, he's a socialist, even though he's not a socialist. They will literally lie about he calls himself a capitalist. He's not in the DSA. He wasn't endorsed by the DSA. So they lie about his ideology, they lie about his platform, they lie about his religion, and as you'll see soon, because we're gonna get into some more clips, they lie about his literal background and personal history too. It's just lies because they have nothing substantive or accurate based in reality to attack this guy on.
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, a lot of Arabs live in Dearborn, Michigan, so apparently that makes it an evil town or something. And again, people in media say that, and there's no consequences. No one cares. No one, there's not going to be any congressional hearings over it. But imagine if somebody said, obviously Ben Shapiro is guilty because he associates with the Jews in Boca. People are like, what? Are you insane?
That'd be crazy.
That'd be like, and that would get you eliminated from all media, all politics. You say, yeah, but they're Jews, so they gotta be radical Jews. And a bunch of them live in Boca Raton, a dump filled with a bunch of Jews. You would be instantly eliminated, and you should be. What kind of a ludicrous thing is that to say Boca's a lovely place? Dearborn is a lovely place. But the minute you say Muslims, you're allowed to call them rats, parasites, etc. Benny Johnson had called Jews parasites and rats. He'd be done. He'd be utterly done, right? But the double standard is infinite because we're showing you right-wing media here, and John's got more. But remember, mainstream media is their accomplice. They say things in a similar way, just a shade lighter. They don't mind the right wing saying this at all. But the minute if you said it about, again, somebody who supports Israel, the media would cover 24/7 and say it was the biggest, most important thing in the world.
Yeah.
So tell us more.
Yeah, and look, I've been fighting against this idea that's been very long-standing. I think mainstream media has helped with this. I think a lot of people have helped with it. The idea that the left or libs or whatever, the label changes, they're the ones that do an identity politics. It's the right, it's always been the right, it's all they have. And look, this is a particularly egregious case. You can see it in everything they say about him. But remember, they're doing the same thing to James Tallarico. It's all about whether he's vegan, whether he's gay, whether he's trans, all this stuff. It's never about substance. It's never about the economy. All they have is their sick, twisted, toxic parfait of bigotries. But anyway, as I said, we do have more clips to get into, and some are a little bit longer, so I didn't want to throw them all into a mashup. So here, we're gonna get to how, I believe in both of the next two cases, how Newsmax is handling it. Here is Rob Schmidt.
An anti-Western DSA-endorsed Muslim Egyptian candidate who pals around with Ilhan Omar and Hassan Piker is the flavor of the month in Michigan among Democrats. A candidate with a name they can't spell who knows, maybe might try to impose Sharia law. That's what Democrat voters now want. Extra points if they can't guess what country you're from too. They love that in the Democrat Party, the Democrat voting base.
Yeah, so he's not DSA endorsed. Are you legally allowed to just make a verifiably false claim about an endorsement if you want? I mean, I could do that. We just start saying that, sure. Also, you know which country he's from? This one. This is the country. He multiple times just stated that he was from Egypt, just lied about his national origin, calling him a foreigner or whatever. I believe he came back. Finnerty, another guy in Newsmax, eventually corrected himself the following broadcast. But you know why they would make the mistake? Because look at him. How could he possibly be one of us? He doesn't look Irish. He doesn't look Scottish. Not a trace of German heritage. He must be a foreigner, I guess. He must have come from somewhere else. And he's got a silly name, and I can't spell it, and I refuse to learn how to say it. That is how all of them have addressed this guy. Not only again, lies about the DSA, lies about his ideology. Maybe he'll do Sharia law. When has he ever said literally anything about that? They just a couple of years ago removed bodily autonomy from tens of millions of women based on their radical ass form of Christianity. But El-Sayed, because he's a Muslim, obviously he's going to try to mix religion with the law. It's just grotesque.
Yeah.
What do you
John, think? Yeah, real quick on that. They can't spell his name. No, I think you can't spell his name. They don't know where he's from. You're a news anchor. Why don't you look it up? By the way, you know where he's from? Michigan. I looked it up. And I love the way he casually says, who knows, maybe he'll do Sharia law. If you don't know, why are you saying it, let alone the fact that he's never said that, so you just made that up.
Yeah, 100%. Also, his name's Abdul. That's not like, I don't think of myself as like a linguist or anything. I don't think that's complicated. I figured out how to say Saoirse Ronan. I think you should be able to figure out how to say Abdul. I don't think that's complicated.
No, John. Nobody in America has ever heard the name Abdul, like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Nobody's ever heard of him.
No, definitely not. My last name is Idarola, okay? Egypt's not the only place that has names that might be tough for you, Rob Schmidt or whatever. Anyway, we have another Rob weighing in. Take a look.
A man named Abdul El-Sayed is about to become the first Muslim socialist ever nominated for the United States Senate in Michigan. And does he kind of look like somebody you might be familiar with? Maybe that other socialist Muslim who's always smiling, the one in New York City. But that's not Zohran Mandami. This is Abdul El-Sayed, which isn't even his full name.
My whole name is Abdul Rahman Muhammad El-Sayed. That's the whole name.
Yep, that's terrific. Senator, what he just said from the state of Michigan in November, maybe. An immigrant from another Muslim country who could become a senator. Abdul is from Egypt.
No, he's not. That's not where he's from. He's not an immigrant. He's also not a socialist. I mean, we could throw that out there too, but I'll give them that. They call literally every Hillary Clinton was a socialist. Of course they're gonna call him a socialist. And then he says first of all, he mispronounced every name in that. So then he hears Abdul say his actual name and he says, yeah, that's not a thing I'd have to learn. I'm a white guy. You think I'm gonna try to learn that in this country? No, I base my entire self-worth on the hierarchies I've built up in my own brain. I don't have to say that mishmash of consonants or whatever he said. It's just bigotry. That's all that it is at all. And then of course, the lies, the constant lies about where he's from and that he's an immigrant and all that absolute nonsense. And that's not some YouTuber, I guess, although we held ourselves to higher standards, Cenk. He is on a network news show. He's one of their nighttime people, and that's how he addressed the Democratic nominee for the Senate.
Yeah, I mean, look, he didn't bother trying to make an argument at all. Every single thing he said there was just an attack on him for just being Muslim. But my favorite was, a guy with a name like that might become a senator. And
what?
And what, right? Okay, well, you could fill in a Chinese. Imagine if he, again, let's use the thing that just switch religions. A guy named Harry Rubenstein is gonna become a US senator. Well, that sounds pretty ugly, right? Fill in the blank with a Muslim name and he thinks it's perfectly okay. Like, what is this?
I don't even think you have to do the religious thing. If it's just that you don't think the name fits in the Senate, Tommy Tuberville is gonna be a senator. Come on, it's too ridiculous. It shouldn't be allowed. See how we could do this? But you wouldn't like that, would you, Rob Schmidt? That doesn't seem fair to you because you get to be at the top of the hierarchy that you created for yourself. Isn't that amazing the way that works out?
But John, it's a hierarchy based on names. How can you argue with it?
Exactly. Well, because my name is hard to pronounce, and so this hurts me a little bit. Actually, everybody thinks it's an L. I'm not Latarola. Anyway, also, Cenk, you do have to admit, doesn't he kind of look like Mamdani, whose name he also mispronounced? I mean, look at them. They're both smiling in the photos we chose.
So he kind of looks like, dude, I can't tell you from the other Newsmax host. We literally got your names mixed up.
They're literally both Rob.
They're both like corporate media robots. We do not like Muslims. We love tax cuts for the rich. We love giving money to Israel. You guys are identical, dude. Nobody gives a damn about what you think. And John, the funniest part of that was like, they're both smiling.
Yeah, that is scary. They're both smiling and Trump is turned on equally by both of them. Yeah, and it's just like you can literally just put their faces and say, I think they look alike. That's a thing you can do to Muslims now. Totally different country. Like one's, I believe he's Egyptian, maybe Indian, Egyptian in origin or something like that. Mamdani isn't, whatever, same thing. It's all the same. Imagine if you did this to Christians. Just like he said, a Muslim socialist. You can't even talk about Christians that way. This is just a mad fully 24/7 identity politics, baseless, no substance way to address a candidacy. And it's been going on for literally days.
Okay, just real quick. Mamdani's lineage is South Asian. They actually came from Uganda. His parents had gone to Uganda and then they came here, but they're South Asian and Abdul El-Sayed's family is originally from Egypt. South Asian and Africa, two different continents, okay? But they look similar and I can't pronounce either one of their smiling names. Oh yeah. Man, you got him, man. That is a compelling reason not to vote for someone. I didn't know they were gonna come in with this much substance.
100%. Well, we have more. So Finnerty, at least, he's the second of the Robs, I think. I don't know, they all look alike to me. He corrected himself, saying Abdul was born in Michigan. He is not an immigrant. So thank you on the follow-up program actually doing that. He then went on to attack him for using the phrase inshallah, saying the official language of the United States of America is English, it's not Arabic. That doesn't mean you can't use another language at some point. Him saying it isn't a DMV document. You can say other things, but no, you can't. You cannot use an Arabic term. That's not allowed in this land of the free, obviously, that Newsmax has always supported, Cenk.
Yeah, ay caramba.
No.
That's anyway. One bad hombre. So look, to be fair, they just want good English words and phrases like, hey, maybe he's the big cheese, right? You know that phrase has nothing to do with Swiss cheese, American cheese. A cheese actually means boss in Farsi, and that's part of the English language now. That's why it's evil and why we shouldn't elect anyone with funny names.
Yeah, I didn't know that. You learn something new on the show every day. Okay, so that's him. Now we have Rudy Giuliani, who I was surprised to find out is still alive. So in his radio show, he compared El-Sayed to an Arab prince who wants to destroy your country. He claimed we may end up having a majority taking the oath of office on the Quran and the whole country will change. No, we won't, first of all. Second of all, if you're gonna claim that that's a bad thing, which you're implying, would you care to ever make an argument? Why would that be a bad thing? First of all, you know what I'd be fine with? Not swearing in on any religious text. I don't know, as an atheist, I don't see what the point of literally any of that is, but you don't see me whining about it every single day. And he's not an Arab prince, he's a dude from a suburb of Detroit. Those are vastly distinct things.
Yeah, several Congress people have already been sworn in on the Quran and the country did not explode or implode. It's still right here, just like it was before. And again, I'll do it because it gives you a sense, because one sounds jarring because mainstream media has told you it's terrible and they're right about that. The other one seems like normal. Oh, you say Arab prince out to destroy our country, normal, right? So let's do the other one. That's a Jew prince out to destroy our country. And you're done. Your show is canceled, you're eliminated, you're never seen in public again. And that's true, you shouldn't be, that's terrible, right? But he says it with a different race and everybody's like, it's totally fine. Rudy.
Octo Squiddy seems to have pointed out that I think we know what movie Rudy Giuliani had just said, not only because he conceives of Abdul as an Arab prince, but that he would usher in a whole new world. Like, I love that. That's a classic. I'm gonna show it to my daughter, Rudy, but it's not the real world. Anyway,
okay.
Laura Loomer attacked El-Sayed during the primary, calling him a jihadist based on nothing, who wants to destroy your country. No, he wants to take part in the governance of it, actually. He loves it so much that after serving in a variety of different areas, he now wants to work as an elected official. He says this is a guy who doesn't just practice Islam, but he also has explicit support for terrorist organizations, calling him a Hamas sympathizer. Obviously, by the way, in her responses, a couple of tweets since he got elected, she went on these long conspiracy theories about how mosques all over America are stockpiling military grade weapons, which I've always been told are the most patriotic weapons. I don't know why all of a sudden that's a bad thing. Grenades and all sorts of stuff, because they're going to arm millions of military age Muslim men to take over the country. And she is obviously fully in support of us just raiding and shutting down mosques all over America. Again, we are a free country. country, according to her.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Yeah, so here we go. I'm gonna do it again. Okay, now see, it's totally made up. There's no evidence of any of that. Okay, so imagine if I made up something similar and I said, I think that they're stocking weapons in the synagogues because the Jews are gonna attack us and take over the country. They got grenades, they got military grade weapons in the synagogues. We should destroy all the synagogues and make sure that they can't have any of their temples in this country. Instantly eliminated. No one ever hears from me again. And again, that would be absurd and totally, understandable reaction.
Yeah.
She says it about mosques. Not a peep. I'm sorry, John, maybe I missed it. Did Jake Tapper and Dana Bash do angry diatribes about it on CNN today?
No, we're gonna have to leave that to all of the mainstream news hosts who are Muslim to represent that faith, except that there's basically none. I can think of like one. Again, diversity actually matters. Maybe you would have some defense of candidates like this if it wasn't mostly all Christians or maybe some atheists in there. In any event, conspiracy theorists that claimed less than that they were stockpiling guns and grenades and all that against synagogues has literally resulted in attacks on synagogues. Many people have lost their lives because of the conspiracy theorizing of a sort that Laura Loomer was doing. She's now making even more specific claims against mosques. So if somebody were to go in and shoot up a mosque tomorrow, I mean, what are we supposed to say, that those are totally disconnected things? I mean, she's saying they're preparing to murder you and your family. They're stockpiling weapons. What are you gonna do? You're just gonna let them do that? That's what she's saying. She's a powerful person, Cenk. Not just has an audience or whatever, is making ad revenue. She gets to like choose who's hired and fired in the federal government. The Trump administration is tighter with her than any Democratic administration has ever been with the Young Turks. And she's making these sorts of claims online with literally no basis.
Yeah, I mean, that's hilarious. Democratic administrations wouldn't let us walk by the White House. Because they're like, oh my God, you guys actually want to do the agenda. We were just lying. Yeah. Oh, get away from us, right? Whereas she's like, I'm here to serve Israel. Israel wants that person fired, that person fired, that person fired. And they're like, yes, sir, right away, ma'am. I mean, ma'am, I guess. So she has the power to fire anyone Israel doesn't like inside the White House. She says she's gonna, lobbying to be the head of Homeland Security. That's a segment we have later in the show. And people have already attacked mosques and Islamic centers many times in this country and other countries, and she's egging them on with nothing but lies, right? And that's why they've done congressional hearings about Laura Loomer, and that's why cable news is constantly enraged about the anti-Semitism coming out of Laura Loomer against other Semites, Arabs. Oh, right, that's almost never happened, and they don't care, and they think it's perfectly normal if you do it to Muslims. Because look, guys, I get it. First of all, I want to clarify two things here. Number one, just because right-wing media is doing it doesn't mean that right-wing voters all agree. So fair is shown in America, right? So do some right-wing voters agree? Unfortunately, yes, of course, right? But overall, right-wing voters in Tennessee took out Andy Ogles, who said that Muslims don't belong in America. That just happened yesterday. We're gonna talk about that later in the show. And so yes, the voters are split. And by the way, these days, a lot of right-wingers are coming out, including in media like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, etc., and saying Muslims are not our enemy. We were tricked into that. So unlike them, we're not saying this is a blanket statement. These are the same right-wing media who all tell you that Israel's God's gift to humanity and you have to take out your money and give it all to them. You have to go into their endless wars, etc. So it's the same propaganda machine. And they're kissing cousins of mainstream media who also tell you Israel's the victims, you have to give all your money to them, and you have to do their wars, etc. So it's corporate media. It's got a right-wing version, it's got a mainstream version. And they're both driving towards the same agenda. You must serve Israel. Muslims are the enemy, and attacking them is no big deal. And you're allowed to be racist or bigoted towards them. But if you do it towards anyone who supports Israel, we're gonna take your head off and eliminate you from the national conversation. And on that one, we don't care if you're Muslim or Christian or atheist. It doesn't matter. You speak against Israel, there will be consequences. You speak against Muslims, bravo. They'll probably give you a standing ovation at CNN because I don't see them saying anything. All I see on CNN is the same garbage just with different words. Are they likely to lose now in Michigan? That's not true. That's not what the polling shows. I mean, Harry Enton yesterday did a comical segment where he's like, oh, chances of Democrats winning is down in Lake Michigan now. And on the screen, he has Abdul, and his argument for it was Kalshi odds. Okay, I'm a little intrigued by that. I'm not saying it's totally illegitimate at all, right? But it showed that he had a 59% chance and Mike Rogers only had a 41% chance. He's leading by 18. We can see the numbers there on the screen, Harry, but he's like, it's going way down. Now, he's not saying Muslim, but he's saying wink, wink, wink. Remember, nobody's gonna elect Abdul El-Sayed, and every anchor on CNN, they're gonna lose, look at him. Oh, he doesn't even love Israel. How dare he, right? So look, I get these right-wing hacks. I've been dealing with them my whole life, these media guys who are all bought. They don't care. They go and find like the most disgusting people in the country, like the bottom of the barrel, and they give them money to do these talking points, and they have an agenda. Support the super rich and their tax cuts, support corporations and their deregulation. If it hurts the average American, who cares? Support endless wars, and they're all like, yes, sir, absolutely, sir. And who do you need us to destroy and smear in order to get you endless wars? Muslims, good, we'll destroy the Muslims. Okay, now do they tell you any of the, like that whole thing about the Quran? I'm gonna go back to, imagine being sworn in on the Quran. It's a religious text. I mean, imagine if you said, imagine being sworn in on the Bible. That's a terrible thing to say. Why isn't it terrible when it's another religion? By the way, I just looked it up just to make sure I was right. Yep, Keith Ellison, among others, was sworn into Congress on Thomas Jefferson's Quran. Thomas Jefferson had a Quran. Well, obviously he couldn't write the Declaration of Independence or be a president of the United States, could he, John?
No, definitely not, definitely not. I only have one more, and I know you have a video that you want to go to, but so they seem to have accepted. We can't keep saying that he was born in Egypt. That turned out not to be true. But on Fox News is outnumbered. So this isn't Newsmax anymore. This is on Fox News. Contributor Kaylee McGee, hey, they found another Kaylee, falsely called El-Sayed a foreigner because his parents were born in Egypt. That's not what that means at all. He's an American citizen who was born here, lived here. Like that's who he, like, they're so desperate to make this about identity. That is literally all that they have. But anyway, we have the video that you asked for as well.
Nah, just skip it. I've had enough of this racism, but I will say this. I'll end
Me
on
too,
this.
actually.
I'll end on this. Okay, so Abdul was not born in Egypt, but I was born in Turkey. I am 100% American citizen, okay? So the fact that you're born somewhere else does not affect whether you're an American citizen or not. And so there's I believe there's over 30 million naturalized citizens who were born elsewhere, in Ireland, Norway, Turkey, Egypt, wherever it might be, right? So they're basically spitting in the face of about 10% of Americans going, you're not real Americans because you weren't born here. Well, kiss my American ass. I'm just as American as anyone and way more American than those traitors, Finnerty and Schmidt and whatever else that they are, who think that, oh, America's about racism and hating people. No, America's about equality and justice, and that's why we love it. If you don't like America, why don't you get the hell out and move to some sort of fascist country where you'd feel a lot more at home, maybe like Israel.
I think we should probably take our first break. We got some pretty dark stuff to dive into after this.
This guy, Hassan Piker.
All right, guys, so let's go to comments, blind, see how that turns out. TYT.com, Nord Ferguson says all the conservative influencers are having near aneurysms over El-Sayed being a Senate candidate. Isn't it great? But you know, the right-wing rebels that have broken off, the Carlson, MTG, etc., they're out there, Massey, saying Mike Rogers is a bitch for Israel. So not all the right-wingers have gone in the wrong direction. We should note that too. Asimov's prophet, by the way, they didn't quite phrase it that way to be fair, okay? But they're saying, be wary of anyone taking money from AIPAC. And of course, Mike Rogers is a servant of Israel. Asimov's prophet says, wait, is the right wing saying that Dearborn, Michigan is a terrorist stronghold? Trump let an American city become a terrorist stronghold while he's president? It's a good question. Shouldn't they be furious about Donald Trump then? Rebel Dragon says, wow, he's campaigning in Dearborn for a seat representing Michigan. Okay, Dearborn, Michigan. ZZ Mujin says the right wing is not lying about him being a socialist. They just don't know the definition of the word. So they say it with a scary tone or context. Always, always, always make someone define socialist, fascist, communist, etc. when they say one of those words. Yeah, they don't know what the hell they're talking about, but he says he is not a socialist. So they're wrong, but you're right. EMETIB2 says the right-wing wackos are panicking. Last week, the morons wanted El-Sayed to win because he's going to be so easy to beat. Their yellow streaks are showing. Yeah, what happened to easy to beat? You look like you're in a goddamn panic. All right, we'll be right back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and John with you guys. Also, Cheesy Fingers 79, one of my favorite handles. Thank you for gifting 5 memberships on YouTube. We really appreciate you guys. You can also join by hitting the join button below. And Marty Mule 1962 is a YouTube member and asked, Cenk, does Anna get royalties for being featured on the new Iran Lego video? No, but I will talk about that later on. So stay right here, and it pays to be a member. So we'll have fun conversations about that. Hit the join button below or tyt.com/join. All right, John, what's next? Oh no, I'm next. Here we go.
I don't understand why we can't criticize even someone that you think is an ally for actions that we deem to be morally reprehensible. Like, I don't understand how you can defend the settlements in the West Bank. Like, I don't understand how you have no criticisms over their actions, over their increasingly messianic, ultra right-wing government that seems to think relentless war is that you can bomb people out of resistance.
It's like I've never said that Israel is perfect. What I'm saying, though, that's our special ally.
Oh, Israel isn't perfect. Well, we're going to show you some of the imperfections in the West Bank and what John Fetterman has absolutely no problem with. So you want to murder people? You want to attack American citizens? John Fetterman doesn't mind because he's being paid by the Israeli lobby. So John, tell us about the sick actions of the Israelis in the West Bank.
Yeah, so there was another attack. We're going to talk about quite a bit of violence here. This was during a military raid in a village in the West Bank. Turmasaya is the village. IDF soldiers threw a stun grenade at an 82-year-old person. This is a Palestinian American named Kamis Rabi Jabara. The blast apparently caused Jabara to fall and hit his head on the ground. An 82-year-old person who is obviously a great danger of any kind of fall, let alone one caused by the close proximity of an explosion of a stun grenade. So this village, which is home to many Palestinian Americans, is also, for context, where Israeli forces killed a 14-year-old. This is another Palestinian American, Omar Rabia, in April of last year, part of a pattern of Americans harmed by Israeli forces with little accountability. We're relying on this story from the reporting of Drop Site News. And so based on this history, it might not come as much of a surprise that the soldiers didn't appear to care that much about the damage that they'd done, especially after finding out that the 82-year-old was an American citizen. Take a look.
احكي على الامبولانس. You speak. Look, I speak this American citizen. You know this coming with a visa. You know that, right?
Amazing, yeah.
Okay, everything recording. Yes. What to do with my uncle? Okay.
Tell you to go inside. Where you
okay.
Inside?
I told you this is my house. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In a court in USA, your picture in USA, sir. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
My name is Daniel.
Daniel.
Yes.
Okay. Show me your Daniel. Look, my uncle passport. You know how much? How old? This 80-year-old. You see?
Brother.
You see, sir?
The facial expression on the soldier there didn't care. You just threw a stun grenade at an 82-year-old. If you found out, let's say you found out 10 years ago I had done that, dramatically change your view of me. It'd be the worst thing I'd ever done in my life. That dude, he doesn't seem to care that he did it, not 5 minutes after. And so thank you to Zeteo, by the way, for making that video available. Again, in these sorts of situations, even with the video, far too many people won't care, but without it, forget about it. You never get them to agree to what actually happened. Now, they did go around, the soldiers in that area, confiscating phones to delete the footage, which is definitely what you do when you're the most moral army in the world and you never make any mistakes or whatever. This seems like the sort of imperfection, by the way, Cenk, that maybe Fetterman could at least pretend in a podcast interview to give a damn about, but he's not going to have to, and most Western media isn't going to cover this story. Most Americans will never hear about it, although again, this was an American citizen who was hit in this way and fell and hurt himself. And as of right now, there's no indication that there's gonna be repercussions of any sort for this attack. There is one member of Congress who is pushing for an investigation. Senator Chris Van Hollen said enough is enough. This time, an 82-year-old American man has been left bloodied and injured by the IDF, and another attempt to hide evidence. This has to end. If the ambassador of Israel can't protect American citizens from this kind of violence, he needs to resign. And that, of course, would be Mike Huckabee. He hasn't made any statement on the situation. I'm not exactly holding my breath for it. But for further context, since 2022, there have been 9 US citizens killed in Gaza and the West Bank, 1 killed in Lebanon as well. There has been, so far as we can identify, no accountability for the loss of any of these lives. And again, supposedly, we have an America First government in office right now that cares about protecting us, cares so much, they'll shred the Constitution to get immigrants out of our country because that's what it takes to protect America. But I guess if you're in Gaza, I guess if you're in the West Bank, I guess if a certain country's military is the one that brutalizes you or kills you, you don't deserve protection. That's what it seems like, Cenk.
There's 2 layers to this. So one is the lack of humanity, right? It's an 82-year-old. I mean, have a conscience, but they don't. So he's like, yeah, we just almost killed an 82-year-old. Yes. Okay. No, Fetterman doesn't see it though, because he's drowning in Israeli cash. So he's like, I can't see through all the Israeli money. But the second part is, I think in a lot of ways, just as enraging. He says he's an American and he laughs in his face like, American. We kill Americans all the time. Who cares? You people are beneath us. There'll be no consequences. Like in the old days, if you killed an American anywhere in the world, oh boy, you were gonna be in a lot of trouble. Because we have a lot of power, right or wrong, we do. And we look out for our own citizens. That's the way it should be in a lot of ways. Except if you're in Israel, then they can murder you. Not one person has been arrested for the murder of those 10 Americans. The Israelis laugh in our face, literally. They're like, Americans, pff, we own you. No, we can literally take your life, laugh about it on camera, and there's nothing you could do about it. Even your ambassador to our country actually works for us. Your president works for us. 94% of your Congress works for us. We get to do anything we want to you, including murder you. And there's nothing you could do about it because we're superior to you. That is their attitude. There's no question about it. And we enable that attitude by saying, of course, sir, yes, sir. Here's more American money, sir. Here's 3 billion more. Here's 13 billion more. Here's 21 billion more. Oh, you want a war? Of course, go die for Israel. 18 Americans dead in this war that we had nothing to do with. There's no reason. 600 injured, all for Israel. And anytime we ask our politicians to represent Americans, they laugh in our face like the Israelis do. But there's another devastating story, John. Tell us about that.
Yes. Well, this one at least has some good news attached to it, some good news coming out of the West Bank. It was reported just yesterday that Israeli prosecutors are officially bringing charges against a settler who murdered a Palestinian activist in the West Bank last year. This is the first time since October 7th that an Israeli has been indicted for killing a Palestinian. And I looked into it. It's not the first time They did that, actually. It has been many times. This is literally the first time in years. Military prosecutors last brought charges over a 2019 shooting of a young man who stopped to help victims of a traffic accident. The last time civilian prosecutors brought charges was in 2018 over the killing of a mother of 8 hit by a rock as she was driving. These are just devastating stories to, in some cases, as with the prior victims we talked about, be reminded of, and some to learn about for the first time. According to the indictment, state attorneys accuse Yinan Levy, a settler who lives in an outpost in the southern West Bank, of reckless manslaughter in the death of prominent Palestinian activist Auda Hathalin in July of last year. Levy's also accused of armed trespassing and malicious property damage. Reckless manslaughter as a charge under Israeli law carries a maximum sentence of 12 years in prison. And I believe this is one of the movies that was discussed on the show, but the activist Hathalin, who's died in this case, was one of the activists involved in the film No Other Land. And so we can give more details about the killing, but this is a rare case, Cenk. I mean, we showed you literally how rare when there actually will be charges, there will be some kind of consequences. It's not over, it's the beginning of the process, but at least it's a beginning.
Yeah, so I want to get a little bit more into that. First, this is a perfect example of the phrase exception proves the rule. So first arrest in 3 years for all these murders, and I'm gonna tell you the scale of the murders in a second. But in that particular case, number one, why did they even bother arresting this guy when they never arrest anyone for murdering Palestinians? Because since he was in the movie, it was drawing more international attention. So they do a fake arrest of a guy to make it seem like, oh yeah, we arrest people all the time. He's literally the only one, okay? And so, and in fact, when they arrested him, they gave him 3 days of house arrest, and then they immediately let him go. He's free right now, okay? Awaiting a trial in their kangaroo courts. In that shooting, though, I want to tell you a little bit more about it. So they shoot the activist, he's bleeding to death. An American nurse happens to be there, and also an Israeli American that was there that corroborated everything I'm about to tell you. And the American nurse jumps on him, trying to save his life. You can hear in the background as he's bleeding to death, the Israeli settlers and soldiers laughing. We murdered another Palestinian. It's so funny. And then what did they do? They arrested the nurse, and they arrested 17 people that settler Levi was shooting at. Wait, they arrested the victims? Of course they did. They're Israelis. The IDF is a terrorist organization, so they're like, oh, these people are innocent and we murdered one of them? Well, let's just arrest them and detain them. They came back later and arrested the victims' brothers and cousins. Why, did they do something? No, they didn't do anything. But they're like, yeah, you're the brothers and cousins of the victims. So I don't know, maybe you might be upset that we murdered your brother, so we're just arresting you for no reason. You're now our hostages, along with all the witnesses. And then what did they do to the American nurse? They kicked her out of the country. They're like, stupid American trying to save a Palestinian life. Don't you know you're beneath us? Get the hell out of our country, okay? So that's what Israel does. So I mentioned all these murders. What do you mean? Well, here, I'll give you some facts. Israeli settlers and soldiers have killed at least 1,100 Palestinians in the West Bank since October 7th of 2023. And who's that brought to you by? The Israeli rights group B'Tselem. Wait a minute, that's very similar to the number killed on October 7th. And I was told by American media that October 7th was the worst thing that happened since the Holocaust. Same number of Palestinians, actually way more civilians died in the West Bank, and American media has barely noted it. I don't know that I've ever seen it on cable news. Because for American media, for disgusting cable news anchors like Jake Tapper, Dana Bash, and the others, I just use them as examples. You could fill in any name here because other than Chris Hayes, almost all of them support every disgusting Israeli action and pretend that they're the victims as they murder these people left and right. Did you see any outrage on CNN or even on Memes Now about all the Americans murdered by Israel and not a single arrest? No, because they're lowly Americans. They're not important Israelis. So all these Palestinians murdered by the settlers and by the terrorist IDF, and not a peep, because cable news anchors and New York Times reporters think those aren't humans, they're just Palestinians. They're just Americans. They're not important people like the Israelis. Oh my God, if the Israelis were killed, we would talk about it forever. And it would be the worst thing since the Holocaust. Oh, Palestinians, same number? Actually, a bigger number of civilians? Who cares? Their lives are worthless. That's what our disgusting monsters in cable news and mainstream media think. Deeply racist bigots. Now, let me explain more of the monstrous actions of the Israeli government. The Israeli human rights organization Yesh Din found that over the past 2 decades, more than 93% of police investigations into Israeli offenses against Palestinians in the West Bank were closed with no charges filed. Golly gee, you murdered a Palestinian. Oh, look at that. We just couldn't find any way to charge you. Here's a gift, right? An American press. Tell us how great Israel is. How they deserve to be murdered. Lowly Palestinians to lowly Americans, their lives are worthless, right? Why do you treat it differently? Shireen Abu Akleh is an American journalist. We showed you her picture. She's one of the ones murdered. CNN acknowledges that she was murdered by the Israelis. It was a sniper who hit her in the neck. She had a giant press flak jacket on and she had a helmet on, so they had to hit her in the neck to kill her. And so that was an assassination. When the Saudis killed a Washington Post columnist, everyone in the media, the Saudis, you should take their money away, the disgusting Muslim Saudis. And I agree, it was totally disgusting what they did to Jamal Khashoggi. The Israelis murder an American journalist, they're like, whatever, shut up. She's stupid American, stupid Muslim, no one cares. She's not even American, she's not even Israeli. Last one, B'Tselem. By the way, guys, we are not monsters like the people on cable news. We're not paid to be this disgusting racist and bigots like they are, right? So are there a variety of people in Israel? Obviously, we're quoting Israeli human rights groups here. A lot of times we quote the Israeli press. So if all you do is hate the Israelis in return, it's not gonna work. We have to break the cycle of hatred. We have to be better than them. We have to be moral, right? But I'm telling you what's happening in Israel. They've unfortunately become a fascist state. It happens to different ethnicities all the time. It happened to the Germans and so many others, okay? It goes around the world, but right now, fascism is in Israel. But our press lies to you 24/7 to protect those fascists, and that is super weird. But Selem's a great organization in Israel, and they actually care about human lives and treat everyone equally. And they say at the end of December 2025, the Israel Prison Service was holding 9,128 Palestinians in detention or in prison in what it defined security grounds, including 1,477 from the Gaza Strip. At the time, the IPS was also holding 2,062 Palestinians, 20 of them from the Gaza Strip for being in Israel illegally. Okay, so that 21, at least they have some modicum of reasoning for it, but over 9,000 Palestinians held hostage. They didn't do anything wrong. There are no charges. They never charge them. They just round up family members. They just round up innocent Palestinians. Our press, when Hamas took hostages, the Israeli hostages. Okay, I'm with you. That's disgusting. I don't want those hostages to be. How about 9,000 Palestinian hostages? Oh, shut up. There's Palestinians. They're lower than dirt. Why would we care about them? They're not human. They're not Israelis. The Israelis can take any hostages they like. Palestinians. They have nothing but loathing and hatred for Palestinians, Arabs, and Muslims. The people who work in our national media are the very worst of us. They took like the most immoral people in the whole country and they gave them cable news shows. Now tell everybody how American lives are worthless, Palestinian lives are worthless. Every life is worthless other than Israelis. If an Israeli is killed, you guys make a giant deal about it and never shut up. If an American is killed, a Palestinian is killed, you bury it. You bury it. They take 9,000 Palestinian hostages, not human. Who cares? Bury the news. Don't let anyone find out what our beloved Israel is doing. That's the sick people who work on cable news.
I think we should take a break before we hit up apparently what's going on behind the scenes with Iran and our attempts at diplomacy.
All right, let's go to YouTube members. Trisha Briggs 2101 says, "Yay, my two favorites." Thank you, Trisha. Appreciate it. Kane's World says, "I heard El-Sayed likes to skateboard on his way to the mosque." What a radical Muslim. Wait for it. That could be used as a weapon, Adam Chrisman says, the establishment wants us all to be slaves to labor and working. This is the only country where taking a vacation or leave of absence is frowned upon. Yeah, in Europe, they think vacations are obvious and et cetera. But no, everybody back to the mines. Carl Guy says, I realize politics is dirty business and a lot of mudslinging goes on, but this is nothing but defamation. It's dangerous not only to Abdul as a candidate, but also as a human being. Yeah, they're trying to drive up hatred towards him. Nani Dragon says, by the way, guys, all right, anyway. Yes, some of those news companies are owned by utterly radical Zionists. So it's not oops, we accidentally were bigoted against Muslims. They drive bigotry towards Muslims on purpose so that you don't mind when Israel murders them and takes their land. Like Rupert Murdoch, the disgusting Zionist. It's one of the most evil men in my lifetime. And in Washington, they kiss his ass all the time. Oh, Rupert, he's a media mogul. Deeply, deeply evil person. Jed Kuzak, I love how right can only deal with 3 letters. DEI has now become DSA. Yeah. Ancestral Worm says Corn Pop was a hombre, malo. Okay, I gotta go. We'll be back.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and John with you guys. We've got a lot of stories, so we're gonna just jump right into the next one. So we got a devastating report that Iran is not planning to negotiate a peace deal with the United States. If that is true, oh boy, buckle up, brace for impact. They're planning to wait out Donald Trump. Oh my God, that's going to take over 2 years. And why are they doing that? Because they believe that Trump is not serious about peace negotiations. So that all he's doing is biding his time so he could attack Iran more effectively. So they think that they're not going to allow him to do that. Now let's find out all the facts of this and then assess for ourselves if that's right or not, because this could be monumental news. John.
100%. Now, this is coming from a new piece in Responsible Statecraft, which was written by a fellow at the Quincy Institute, who says, in Tehran's view, a comprehensive agreement with the Trump administration is virtually unachievable. Trump either cannot deliver a durable settlement because he cannot afford its domestic political cost, or he does not want to. I would just throw in, or he'll make one and then go back on it as he does with every other deal he's ever made, but they're leaving that out as a possibility. Anyway, they go on to say, even if the administration wants to change course, Israel, which clearly maintains a substantial influence within Trump's inner circle, despite the recent rhetoric of Vice President JD Vance, will do what it can to disrupt it. Furthermore, the author explains why the recent memorandum of understanding before the so-called ceasefire actually ended up being hurtful for the Iranian regime, and therefore attempts to get some sort of diplomatic outcome with them. Because under the MOU, bombing stopped and the blockade was lifted despite some violations of the Lebanon ceasefire, but the promised economic incentives were never realized. So Tehran did what they said they'd do. They exported oil, $6 billion of it, but they were supposed to be given $12 billion in foreign assets, and they just never received that money. And so this limited, one-sided implementation of the deal hurt Iran's negotiating team at home. Think about that. If you're on this team, you get this deal, we go into it for weeks and weeks and weeks. Iran does a good portion of what they said they would, and we just don't give them the money. Maybe because Donald Trump knows that if it's reported that he does hand over the money, right-wing media is gonna be angry at him. And we're obviously gonna laugh at him too, considering how much he criticized Barack Obama for that exact same thing. And so they didn't get what they said they would get. So why would the regime trust the negotiators for whatever deal they would make next. It's already been proven that Donald Trump and the Americans are not going to make good on their promises. And reportedly, Iranian leadership is still concerned that the United States could cripple Iran if it bombed enough civilian infrastructure, which Donald Trump threatens a couple times a week. But they also believe that any pauses in the war will overwhelmingly favor the US and Israel, perhaps allowing them to rearm, get back the missile stockpiles and stuff like that. So seeking to break the deadlock, Tehran has thus adopted a strategy of managed confrontation, a form of active deterrence to raise the cost for the United States. So not all out war, but occasionally having an attack, occasionally hitting a boat, those sorts of things. And in the meantime, Iran believes that it can withstand any economic damage that the US and Israel attempts to inflict on it. And they're betting that Trump will instead be forced to withdraw from the war thanks to his rapidly declining poll numbers. But as of right now, the Iranians are still very much suffering, especially the civilians, who the regime obviously doesn't care much about. But this is all the more reason, Cenk, to believe that, I don't know, any kind of end to this could be a long time in coming, and our initial descriptions of it as a forever war are feeling more and more accurate with every passing day.
Yeah, it's terrible news. So, look, you got to go to a place like Responsible Statecraft to get real news, because American media is so terrible. I mean, they only give you the Pentagon's version, which is obviously propaganda. Like, okay, I get it. You report the American talking points, you report the Iranian talking points, and then you try to figure out what's actually happening, right? So, so in this case, I couldn't be more against this. So I want the Iranians to negotiate for peace. It's not on me to determine who wins those negotiations, what Iran gets, what America gets. I have an excellent sense of what would be fair. I think I've said it on the show many times. They get rid of their nuclear weapons program, which they never had anyway. So they lose nothing from that, and reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which is what the case was before the war. But in return, we have to actually leave, and we have to actually do our end of the deal. But we've learned from the Israelis, just lie, never do a deal. So now the Iranians are saying, well, look, you've already murdered our peace negotiators before. You murdered all of our top leaders. You never listened to a ceasefire. So now you want me to listen to your ceasefires, which allows you to reload. And then I'm gonna wait for you to reload and then attack me again. That's what Israel does every time. And now, unfortunately, that's what America is doing. So no, we're not gonna do that. Now, I hate that they've reached that conclusion. I'm desperate to get the peace, but if this is right, then we're not going to be able to get there. And so then, look, Trump keeps saying, "Oh, we're days away from a deal." Scott Besson said it in the beginning of the week. Here we are at the end of the week. CNBC has an article today like, "Well, Besson and Trump seems to have lied every single time when they say we're about to get a peace deal, but the markets still believe them." Why? Why do you believe them if they lie every single time? Well, the Iranians now are saying we don't believe them, but our markets are like, "Oh yeah, I bet he's telling the truth." No, he's not telling the truth. There's no imminent peace deal. I mean, how many times has he said it? Dozens of times. He said, by the way, this is guaranteed. Iran is talking to Oman, and I hope something comes out of that. I hope this story, because there's different factions in Iran, while being accurate, could still speak for only one faction. And they could change their minds. There's a lot of things that could happen, right? But one thing is absolutely for sure, which is that when Trump says Iran called him and begged him to go back to the negotiating, that's an utter lie. It's just 100% fabrication. Iran is not calling Trump, let alone pleading. In fact, our problem is that Iran now thinks that since we are never going to actually do a peace deal or abide by a peace deal, they're not even bothering largely, and they're preparing for more war. So it's like disheartening to see our president be this buffoon who's just constantly waffling back and forth like a literal lunatic. I'm gonna kill them all. We're about to do a peace deal any day now. I'm gonna murder their civilization. Oh yeah. Oh, they're begging me to do a peace deal. It's gonna happen in 30 minutes. Everybody's like, oh, 30 minutes. The market's like, oh, 30 minutes. Okay, and then it never happens. And the market, no. And then Trump says it again. They believe him again. So we have a raving lunatic for a leader, and the Iranians have concluded, since you picked someone out of a mental asylum to be your president, we can't trust any word he says, so there's no point in the negotiations. So John, we're screwed, man.
Yeah, it really does feel like that. And so they're assuming, I don't know, that the polling is going to keep going down. That's going to maybe make Donald Trump more, desperate or something. And that's, I think, the way that it should go. And certainly the war is very unpopular. I've also noticed, though, over the past couple of months, the polling specifically on the Iran war doesn't seem to be going down that much more. And I think part of it is maybe fatigue. People are following it closely for the first 3 or 4 months, but now it's sort of dragging on. It's possible that because it's coming, like the costs of the war to us are mostly economic and not, new coffins being shipped across, back to America every couple of weeks. It feels less bad. I don't know. That makes me a little bit worried about, maybe Donald Trump sees little cost to continuing the war for a really long time if the polling doesn't seem to be directly translating in the midterms, or not that it doesn't, but maybe he thinks that most of the damage it'll do to him or the Republicans is kind of already baked in at this point.
Yeah, so along those lines, John, I think that I should explain to people why I keep mentioning the markets. Because we often talk about stock market, it's mainly rich folks' money, like 90% of the markets, like from the top 10%, et cetera. But that is exactly why I'm mentioning it. Because Donald Trump doesn't care about you. He literally says it. He's like, yeah, I don't care about the prices. I don't care about how, I'm glad the housing prices are up, right? A gas price doesn't bother me. He doesn't care about you at all, right? But he does care about the markets, and the people in power care about the markets because that's where their money is. That's why I keep telling you, as long as the markets are at a record number, they're not going to change anything. If the markets crashed, then all of a sudden Trump and all the billionaires would be in a panic, and they'd be like, you gotta fix this war right away, okay? I lost $13 in the market, my money. Then they'd be like super worried. But since the markets keep going up like idiots, Trump's like, oh, everything's great. I'll just keep dragging this out, we'll reload, and then we'll hit him again, and then I'll tell all the idiots in the markets, oh yeah, the war's over any day now. I've been lying to them for 6 straight months, and the morons haven't figured it out. So as long as the market doesn't go down, Trump is not going to change any of this, and we're going to stay in this war forever.
Yeah, I mean, as always, there's a lot of money to be made for military contractors and that sort of thing. And he's already getting, he's obviously getting a lot of pressure from another country to stay in it. So there's just a lot of forces that all seem to be pushing towards this lasting a really long time.
Yep. All right, guys. Even though we're out of time, I'm going to squeeze one more story in here because I care a lot about it. So Republican representative from Tennessee, Andy Ogles, is a terrible person. And we're going to show you why he's awful and some of the terrible things that he said. But a shocking turn of events, he just lost in a Republican primary. What in the world is going on here? John, tell us about it.
It's pretty fascinating. Bad year for incumbents, and so Representative Andy Ogles, in this particular case, not only was the incumbent, but had also been endorsed by Donald Trump just a few hours before the polls closed. President Trump posted on Truth Social the morning of the election. Congressman Andy Ogles is doing a fantastic job representing the incredible people. He's a conservative warrior who has strong support from his community. In Congress, he is fighting tirelessly to grow our economy, cut taxes and regulation, promote made in the USA, American energy, blah, 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 safeguard election, lots of stuff with guns, just various ways guns are used on people and people are shot. Andy Ogles, my complete and total endorsement for re-election. It's not a complete sentence, but it is an endorsement. Election day for the Republican primaries today. Get out and vote for Andy. He will never let you down. I guess he let Trump down though, because he lost. He's not going to be moving on. So Trump had endorsed Andy Ogles. The guy who beat him had a lot of other endorsements, so it's not like he was some random nobody or anything. But Donald Trump doesn't want you to believe that they should reflect too poorly on him. So he went on to say, last night was another good night for endorsements, 8-1. And the one was a person who I remained loyal to, even though he had virtually no chance of winning. By the way, I looked, Cenk, at the most recent poll before the election. Do you know how much Andy Ogles was down by with virtually no chance of winning? How much he was down by, can you guess?
I'm gonna guess 3.
4, actually, he was down by 4 points. And apparently Trump's endorsement isn't worth 4 points. Anyway, and also the other guy was a great Trump candidate. So I guess Trump wins either way. And that's Charlie Hatcher, who now has Trump's complete and total endorsement 2 days later. And that's a very bold move from Trump, endorsing the Republican in a general election. Whoa, great job, Trump. Anyway, Ogles had been in the district, he'd been elected to the district since 2023. During that time, he generated not necessarily much productive legislation or anything, but a lot of controversies. He once tweeted, "Muslims don't belong in American society. Pluralism is a lie." He also said, "Gay people have no place in America." He tweeted, homosexuality has no place in America. Now, interestingly, he did take down that one after blaming a staffer. I do not believe that he took down the Muslim one. So I guess you can be shamed for your homophobia, but not for your Islamophobia. We've just learned something new today. But as I alluded to earlier, this has been a rough election cycle for incumbents, even just this week. So on the Republican side, Bill Cassidy, John Cornyn, Dan Crenshaw, Tony Gonzalez, and Thomas Massie have all lost their primaries, and even more Democrats, some of whom just had their reelection bids this week. And so, yeah, they're cleaning house to some extent. Cenk, what do you think?
Yeah. So first of all, Ogles says that Muslims and homosexuals don't belong in America, and then the voters just said, "No, we think you don't belong in Congress." So, attaboy voters. And those are Republicans in Tennessee who said, "We don't want this guy." So that's a wonderful development, okay? And then he had a lot of other problems too. You're gonna be shocked to find out that he had campaign finance issues. Really? He sounds like such a moral guy. I'm so surprised by that. So, yes, please stop picking guys who are terrible, and you did. Okay, and so if the other Republican in the race, by the way, has a much better chance of winning, so that was also smart on their part. So I always give credit where credit is due. So credit in that case to the Republican primary voters. Now credit to all of the voters in the country, because we asked you to take out incumbents because the incumbents have a lot of what mainstream media calls wonderful experience. They have experience in corruption. They have experience in taking corporate PAC money, foreign government money, and serving corporations and foreign governments. They're almost all guilty. 95% of them take all that money in politics and totally betray you. So way to throw the bums out. Now, some of those incumbents that lost are not connected to the movement to throw the bums out, but some are. Dan Crenshaw, Ogles on the right suffered that fate. For sure, like Massie lost, but the bad guys got Massie. 32 million spent against them, at least 16 million from the Israeli lobby. And then on the Democratic side, I think Al Green's a good guy. You could disagree about his politics, but he wasn't thrown out because he's a bad incumbent. But the rest of them were incumbents that the Democratic voters were like, no, if you're gonna keep telling us that you love and are gonna loyally serve Israel when 80% of us are against Israel, we're not gonna put you back in. If you tell us that you're gonna serve corporate PACs when we can't afford housing or even food or gas, no, you're not going back in, okay? There you go, guys. So proud of the voters to begin this revolution. Throw out the bums, throw out all the incumbents who have been betraying you the entire time, do not represent you at all. So Ogles happen to be a particularly vile person, but really none of them care about you. And so get in there, especially now the primaries are almost over in 2026. So I say especially in 2028. And this is a good beginning, but I hope this is the tip of the iceberg, and I hope that we address the entire iceberg in 2028. I hope hundreds of incumbents lose. They're all corrupt. And when I say all, I'm talking about the guys taking corporate PAC money and foreign government money, and that's why that's about 95% of Congress. So unless you know your congressperson is clean, do like they did in Tennessee, throw the bum out. Okay, John, 100%. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Everybody check out Damage Report, 1 o'clock Eastern, Monday through Friday. Absolutely fantastic show. And you not only do you get John, you get the Dragon Squad there. All right, when we come back, Laura Loomer is trying to become the head of Department of Homeland Security. She says her first priority is to throw me out of the country. Not joking, not exaggerating, literally what she said. Does she have any chance? Not sure. And by the way, the economy is taking a downturn. The market celebrated by going up. Not joking either. We'll tell you when we come back.
What contributions to the progressive cause are you most proud of? I mean, I don't have super high aspirations for a singular role that I can play in the movement or anything. I try to present myself as what I think that I am, which is a progressive man who is driven by a, I think, well-interrogated and well-organized system of values that I try to stay consistent on, and I demonstrate that that's the sort of life that a person can lead and be successful and be happy and all of that. And that should not need to be done, but there are so many people on the right that are trying to push men in the opposite direction that I want to be able to do that. Along the way, if I can get people to care about some topics that they wouldn't necessarily care about, or that for some men they might think that's not a topic that they should be focused on, that's definitely something that I relish doing. And along the way, I mean, we've been able to introduce people to a lot of candidates. That's been a big part of what we've done. You know, not all of them necessarily got in office. Probably most of them did not. And a lot of them you might not even remember their names. But it was great to be able to provide people the platform where they had the chance of, you know, making a difference. Obviously AOC and all that, but there's been a lot of great people along the way.
In the bonus episode for the members, we do some inside baseball. We're gonna look at John's desk. Nice little spaceship here. Nerd. But it is kind of look cool. Who has Legos? Oh no. He's taken apart a keyboard. Who has a mouse pad that's this big? He's got a dog with a nose that you can hang something on. You know what this desk screams to me? Nerd. And that's how we like him. We love Johnny Pie. He's got his own personality like everybody does at TYT. Come meet us all in the bonus episodes. TYT.com/team. David Sorrell, Nina Turner.
Adam Green drop by.
Charlemagne.
Congressman, great to have you. It's great to be with you, Chang.
Your show is a great thing. You're informing people. A lot of the shows that I live on, you know, my CNN, my MSNBC, and even Fox, and any of the other shows, NPR, they are so quick to decide that they know what this building means today.
The one thing that I hate that politicians do, you know, they talk about the people they should be talking to.
Do they have any idea that they're the establishment and that they're hated, or do they not realize that at all?
People are so deeply in their little universe. I think it's very easy to not really question what you're doing.
Voters have a right to ask questions of any nominee, whether they're independent, Republican, or Democrat.
The system is duopoly that suppresses competition.
How is it the year 2024 and we're still like, maybe they'll talk about paid medical? Like how is that like at one level it's like, look at what we're talking about now. You're like, it's 2024. And that's always been the critique, that your critique of us is, well, you guys give good speeches, you put out good tweets, but you're not wielding actual power. Now we're starting to.
My favorite news platform by far. It's not even close.
It's about a country and a principle, and that's what you and I both work to achieve. And I'm so glad that at least half the battle has now been won.
If you want to go really hear what's going on, honestly, you should tune into the Young Turks.
Thanks for doing such a great job. Please keep it up. Hang tough.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
Oh, I like making you happy.
I didn't know about
This
that.
is a happy Anna Kasparian.
Awesome.
You're welcome, YouTube.
Join the Dragon Squad by becoming a YouTube channel member. Click the join button below or sign up on tyt.com/join to get access to fun emojis, a member-only chat, exclusive shop TYT designs, ad-free watching, and so many other amazing perks. Plus, you get bragging rights for being part of the coolest community on the internet and help us drive real positive change in the world. The Dragon Squad awaits, so join today.
Cenk Uygur has the morality of a cockroach.
All right, welcome back to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur and Dr. Elliot Morgan with you guys. Good to have you in the house. Apparently the doctor makes house calls.
Yeah.
Okay.
You seem a little sick, so.
Well, if you watch the first hour, that you might, is a reason why you might get that impression. All right, so let's, we got a lot to get to, so let's do the next story. Okay, well, I think there we go, okay. We got bad news for you guys. We lost a lot of jobs today, plenty of bad economic news. And so obviously the market celebrated. Wait, what? Okay, so Elliot's gonna tell you all the bad news, and then I'm gonna tell you why the market celebrated. Go ahead, Elliot.
Yeah, so the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported today that in July, the US economy lost 23,000 jobs. That number is for non-farm payrolls and comes alongside a drop of 53,000 government jobs, a slower than normal growth in healthcare, and a softness in retail, leisure, and hospitality. Now, if you're thinking that last part makes sense because it doesn't seem like these days a lot of people can afford leisure, you would be correct because the Bureau also noted that worker pay was nearly flat in July. The 23,000 jobs lost in July is also worse than June's downwardly revised 20,000 jobs. The Dow Jones consensus forecast had been looking for a gain of 83,000. At the same time, the unemployment slipped to 4.1% as the labor force participation rate fell further to 61.4%, its lowest in more than 5 years, another indication that fewer Americans were working or looking for jobs. In addition to the weak numbers for June and July, the final count for May was revised down to 63,000 or 66,000 lower than the prior estimate. The revised numbers brought the 12-month average down to just 34,000. So it's not all bad news, it's just mostly bad news because private payrolls went up this month by 30,000 and construction jobs increased by 22,000. Also, the 40,000 leisure and hospitality jobs that were lost could potentially simply be due to the fact that the World Cup ended. That said, here is a quick snapshot of monthly job creation going all the way back to 2022. 2022, of course, was when many people were going back into the workforce after COVID. And also, in case anybody forgot, 2025 was also when Donald Trump entered the workforce again, AKA the White House. But having a job and being able to pay your bills with that job are two very different things. So here is another snapshot that shows average hourly earnings going back to 2022.
That doesn't look good.
Doesn't look good, right? It's supposed to go, I think it's supposed to go the other way. I could be wrong, but I don't know, it looks a little terrifying. I should also add that almost every article about this story, about these 23,000 jobs that were lost, used the term unexpected, but was it actually unexpected? Thankfully, though, we have Kevin Hassett, the director of the National Economic Council, who went on Fox News to tell us that actually all of this is really good news.
Kevin Hassett, National Economic Council Director. Sir, good day to you, and thank you for coming back here.
Great to be here.
Just give me, how do you read it? Strength, weakness, go.
Yeah, so the strength is what we've seen before, construction workers, manufacturing workers, and so on. The weakness in this number were really just two things, government workers and a sort of rebound from all the employment we got from the World Cup because the World Cup was ending. As if you throw out the World Cup and the government workers, we actually had a number that was about plus 100,000.
Okay, well, there you have it. There's nothing to worry about. If you just ignore all of the lost jobs, there's actually a lot of jobs. Like if I ignore the millions of dollars I don't have, I'm actually kind of a multi-millionaire, and that's the kind of math ain't mathin' that we've come to expect from Trump's top economic advisor, who is the same guy who said recently that the American economy is doing great because Americans are putting so much on credit cards. He also said even more recently that if you put a data center in a sleepy town, there's gonna be a whole lot of happy residents there. So Cenk, this guy has been making the rounds, trying his best to explain how this is all actually good. He's blamed the fact that there were some snow days and that extended the school year, which means that a lot of the teachers lost their jobs in July rather than June, even though I didn't know teachers were fired during the summer. And then of course there's the World Cup thing. And he also mentioned that, well, now since the border's so secure, there's not as many illegals flooding into the country. But I thought the whole point was that the illegals were taking our jobs. So I'm a little confused here. What are your thoughts?
I think that another reason why the numbers are down is because the dog ate their jobs.
Yeah.
And so that's, and to be fair, the dog is full now and he's not gonna eat your jobs anymore. Okay, so look, I'm gonna needlessly dispel what he said. Of course, Elliot's right. If you don't count the jobs that were lost, we gain jobs. Well, we count them together for a reason, okay? But secondly, he's also discounting that the jobs that were gained were supposed to be much larger gains. That's why everybody's like, this is unexpected, right? So in fact, in all the industries, the numbers came in lower than was expected. So, but then that leads you to the question of, wait, why did they have such wrong expectations? Because these days, escaped mental patients work on Wall Street. So no matter what happens, their answer is buy, 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 all right? And so you're like, okay, Trump's like, oh yeah, we're gonna do a peace deal tomorrow or 2 days from now. And they're like, oh, buy, 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 buy. And then there is no peace deal a day or 2 days later or 2 weeks later or 2 months later. But Trump comes out every couple of days and goes, it don't, even though the oil markets look like they should be a disaster, don't worry, don't react based on the realities on the ground, because there's gonna be a peace deal in 2 days. And they're like, great, peace deal in 2 days, buy, 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 right? So remember when Bondi said, the Dow's over 50,000 about the Epstein files and why you shouldn't worry? The Dow is now over 53,000. The other day it hit over 54,000. These lunatics keep buying no matter what happens. So why did they buy today? Because the market went up after the bad news. Because they're like, oh, that's actually good news, because if the economy is slowing down, then the Fed might not raise interest rates. And we're worried about the Fed raising interest rates because of creeping inflation. Wait, do you hear yourself? So now we're going to have creeping inflation plus unemployment. That's called stagflation and the worst possible scenario. So their reaction was buy, 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 right? And soon the whole market's gonna go bye, bye. But they're never gonna wake up until the crash. Look, guys, we covered this earlier. It's not just us saying it. Some of the top experts in the world, some of the top investors in the world, Ray Dalio, one of the wealthiest men alive, one of the greatest investors in history. He's like, what are we doing? It's an obvious bubble. And when it pops, it's gonna be a disaster, right? And Wall Street's reaction, they're like, what would he know? Yeah, he would know a thing or two. And they're like, oh, that's a good point. Buy, 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 buy. And so that's what they did today. So unemployment goes down, great. Oh, by the way, the one thing they don't care about, Elliot, the wages. In fact, they're like, oh, wages are going down for the average American. That means costs are going down for corporations. That's actually good news. Buy, 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 buy. And so they literally celebrate when your wages go down.
It's also, I mean, I love the fact that you said that the dog ate all the jobs, because that's another excuse that Hassett used, where he said it was Doge, that's how the government jobs were lost. It's like, are we still doing that in July? We lost that many jobs from Doge? Okay, fair enough. And also, yeah, like you're saying, the inflation going up and jobs going down is catastrophic. And I love the fact that this guy goes on TV and comes up with all of these asinine excuses and expects people to buy it while smiling and being like, oh yeah, it's nothing to worry about, don't worry about it. I just ignore the stuff I don't like, and I just look at this one particular metric and I go from there. Really incredible stuff from the guy who is, again, Trump's top economic advisor.
Yeah, last two quick things. I think the smile has to do with like the attitude of Wall Street. They're all like, they almost all look like the Joker now. Like, we're buying when the numbers go down and when the numbers go up. Inflation's up, we're buying. Unemployment's up, we're buying. So they send it Hassett. They're like, oh, that guy looks just like us. And then they need just the flimsiest of excuses. Oh, why did we lose jobs? Soccer. And they're like, oh yeah, that's totally true. Yeah, it's obviously because of soccer. You know what we should do? Buy, 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 buy.
Yeah, also, what jobs did these folks have before the World Cup? So they were like employed, and then they just seamlessly transitioned to.
We only hired hobos to run the World Cup, and then
good for us.
Absurd.
Very progressive.
All right, guys, we're gonna take a quick break here. When we come back, so we've got Trump with a hilarious excuse. So apparently we're having fun in the second hour. So why are the numbers going down? Well, it's definitely not him, but whose fault is it? Let's find out when we return.
The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing.
You wouldn't be high by any chance, would you?
All right, let's go to Super Chat. Make It Make Sense says, I love what you guys do at TYT. Thank you for calling out problems, unlike mainstream media who will shame us for noticing the problems. Thank you for giving us a platform where we can freely discuss solutions TGIF boys. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And and he's he's a little bit more on the conservative side, but I love that we got a community now where we talk things out, we don't shame each other, and we have conversations, and we shame the people who deserve shaming that are in power, right? And we reserve kindness and generosity for each other. And so, and yeah, I mean, the reporters in mainstream media are like, if you notice what Israel's doing, that's not the problem. You're the problem for noticing. In fact, I've seen people say, if you use the word notice, that you're a Nazi. Oh my God, like there's no end to their madness, no end. Okay, James Kelly, he did an ad with his grandparents and it was great. I assume you're referring to Mamdani. I'm sorry, Abdul, what am I, a Newsmax anchor? Okay, but I gotta check that out because I haven't seen it. Timothy, one YouTube member says they've targeted hundreds of journalists and no one but Jen covers it. Thank you, brother. There's a couple other shows online and good progressive shows that cover it, and certainly Drop Site News does a brilliant job with it. But yes, mainstream media is like, oh, Israel murdered hundreds of journalists? They're not Saudi Arabia. If Saudi Arabia murders one, it's the biggest deal in the world. Israel murders 240. Oh, they're worthless. Mark Jacobs says, vote blue no matter who. Does not apply to outsider or populist candidates. So crazy that the establishment would want a Republican to win. Yeah, they don't mind. Republican, corporate Democrat, they're perfectly happy. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Elliot with you guys. All right, now let's help you out with a good product. We like bringing you guys good products that improve your lives, and we've gotten some good feedback from our audience about this. It's Chili Pad 2.0. So a lot of folks get stressed, and stress raises your body temperature, actually makes it much harder to sleep. That's why we're recommending Chili Pad 2.0. It's a water-based mattress topper that actively controls your bed temperature anywhere from 55 to 115 degrees all night long. No new mattress, no renovation. It just uses water to cool, so that pulls heat away from your body. It's precise, consistent comfort, and the new nightstand remote senses when you get into bed and kicks on automatically. That's super helpful. Dual zones mean you and your partner each set your own temperature. That's super helpful. No subscriptions needed. You get a 2-year warranty, and they're designed and assembled right here in the USA. So visit www.sleep.me/TYT. Obviously, you can use that QR code right there, and that gets you up to $255 off your Chili Pad 2.0 with the code TYT. That's www.sleep.me/TYT. Free shipping, free returns, and a 30-night trial so you could test it out, dream big, and wake up better. All right, fun. So now, let's go to the next story. MAGA voters are abandoning Trump by the buckets. It's not just independents, it's not just average Americans, but his own voters are starting to leave the House. So Donald Trump has an excellent way of dealing with that. You just deny it. But who he blamed is interesting. So Elliot, tell us about it.
Yeah, all right, so first let's go through the numbers with Harry Enton.
What's going on is simple, is the MAGA movement was built among the working class, non-college Americans. And take a look at this trend line that we're looking at in the data. Here we go. Okay, net favorability rating, the MAGA movement, non-college adults. Back in October of 2024, look at that. On the plus side of the ledger, positive, +6 points. Down we go into the Atlantic Ocean now. Look at this movement, now minus 22 points. Non-college voters on Trump. Hello, okay, in the 2024 election, he won him by 13 points, right? That was the reason he won. He won among non-college voters, a very strong performance amongst them. And that, of course, was the reason he was able to win, because college voters were against him. But look at this now, minus 19 points, minus 19 points. We're talking about an even bigger shift here.
And folks, you're not gonna believe it, but Trump is pretending that none of this is his fault. It's never happened before. In an interview with Punchbowl News, he said, they're angry at Republicans, but they're not angry at me. They're not angry at me, but they're angry at Republicans. I would have believed him if he'd repeated that one more time. But here's even more cope where that came from. The biggest issue for Republicans this year, that Trump himself is not on the ballot, he said. If I don't run, will those people go out and vote? And that's the one thing I can't tell. I'm gonna ask them to, he said. So here's Enton with even more.
I mean, you could just see it here, how voters are feeling. 43% of them in an average of polls are choosing the Republicans for the House. The Republicans for the House are outrunning President Trump. His approval rating is just 37% in an average of polls. They're outrunning him by 6 points. Among independents, the spread's even wider. I have it as a little nugget down there. The House Republicans are outrunning Donald Trump by 9 points, although they're both doing poorly. But the bottom line is this. When Donald Trump says that voters are angry at Republicans, not him, that, simply put, is not the case looking at the data.
And in fact, when it comes to what voters want to see members doing vis-a-vis Donald Trump, what is it?
What do they want him to do? I mean, it's just really clear here. Take a look here. Voters who want congressional Republicans to do more to stand up to Trump or work with Trump. 56% say more to stand up to Trump.
So I am clinically not allowed to diagnose people without actually talking to them. But for some reason, the words clinical narcissist do pop into my mind. But Jake, what do you make of all this? Is this Trump that is getting blamed, or is it just the Republicans?
I mean, come on, guys. I mean, so what, Elliot? Well, I'm never gonna stop being amazed by this because, look, I'm the guy who said that a big portion of his base would break off and everybody thought I was nuts. And that happened, that's beautiful, but that's not why I bring it up. I bring it up because I'm amazed at the portion that's still there. Like about 2/3 are still like, nailed it. Yeah, no, I'm upset at Republicans. And Trump says he doesn't know why. You don't know why? Because gas prices are up and you said they'd go down, right? All inflation's up when you said it'd go down. Now jobs are down. You've got 18 guys in caskets because of that dumb war you started. Now you're begging for $67 billion more. It's cost us an endless amount of money, 600 injured. And you're not doing a single thing for Americans. The only thing you're doing is wars for Israel. And you can't piece that together. But what, and how could they be upset at Republicans for all that, but not at you when you're the one who did all that? So see, his ability to lie with no conscience is legendary. I'll give him that.
Yeah, it's really incredible. It reminds me, I'm gonna butcher this. I think it was George Carlin that was like, imagine someone of average intelligence and then remember that half of the rest of the nation is dumber than that. So I think maybe some folks who are like really leaning into this might be in that dumber category. Also, the rest of the Republican Party is aware that they cannot sell their voters on their unpopular policies. And so they have hatched a brand new plan, which is to fearmonger about the DSA. Here's what's lined up for the upcoming first ever GOP midterm convention. With President Trump's approval rating in the 30s and his war in Iran weighing on the economy, Republicans don't want the November 3rd midterms to be just a referendum on his presidency. They're essentially planning a but they're worse campaign targeting the ascendant Democratic left and socialism. GOP operatives spent months compiling footage of Democratic figures, including left-wing commentator Hassan Piker and Texas US Senate candidate James Tallarico, that they'll use throughout the convention to paint Democrats as outside the mainstream. Quote, our video trove is endless, a convention source told Axios. Abdul El-Sayed is reportedly going to be the focus of that video trove. I, for one, from a strategic perspective, hope they continue down this line of thought, because as I recall, a lot of the Democratic establishment has also relied for the past 10 years on the classic but they're worse strategy, and it hasn't worked out well for them. So maybe that'll be the same with the Republicans. But Cenk, what do you make of this?
They're gonna accidentally make Hassan Piker president because this is what the Democrats did to Trump, and he got elected twice. Right? Democrats are like, oh, no, we're not gonna do anything, and we're total losers, and we're gonna lie to you and pretend we have all these policies, but once we're in power, we're not gonna do any of them. Then we're gonna have mainstream media do all sorts of propaganda, declare Joe Biden to be the next FDR, and we're gonna have everybody go out there and say he's like God's gift to humanity, and even though he can't speak and he's obviously senile, we're just gonna do a lot of propaganda around him. So now the Republicans are like, great idea, okay? So we'll say Donald Trump has done nothing wrong at all, and it's all the Democrats, and you should hate them. And why should you hate the Democrats? I'm gonna take one streamer, and I'm gonna say that he represents the entire Democratic Party, even though look, some of the candidates he's backed has won, which I'm happy about, but on the spectrum of Democratic voters, Haas is pretty much on the most extreme left, right? And I don't say that as an insult, I'm just telling you where he is, right? And so they then do the same thing. And by the way, sometimes we on the left do this too. Take the most extreme right-wing guy and make it seem like he represents every Republican voter. So they're doing the same thing. Take the most extreme guy, and he, by the way, most of his positions are not at all extreme. Universal health care, paid family leave, all the positions that standard Democrats have that are incredibly popular. But he does have some positions that are radical, and then they say, okay, that's all the Democrats. But guys, it's a bad strategy. So it didn't work for the Democrats, it's not gonna work for the Republicans. Yeah, sure, they've done that for many, many years. And the one advantage that the Republicans have, but to be fair, the Democrats had this too. So like the Democrats covered for, the mainstream media covered for Joe Biden. Now why did, and in this case, they'll cover for the Republicans. Why will they do that? I thought they were liberal media. No, they love attacking anyone who isn't in favor of Israel. So they're like, oh, Abdul El-Sayed will cut funding to Israel. Well, let's destroy him. How can we destroy him? Oh, they're Hassan Piker. Okay, great. So CNN is doing the same exact strategy as the Republicans are. They try to attack Abdul El-Sayed on all the Democratic progressives and outsiders to help destroy any opponent of Israel, right? So, but mainstream media helping Joe Biden and the Democrats didn't work either. I don't think this is going to work, right? And so in order to win, you should do something radical. You ready? Propose things that are actually positive for the average American voter and then do them. I know, that's so radical that nobody in Democratic or Republican leadership has thought of that. The Republicans are like, what do you mean? We'll start endless wars and do tax cuts for the rich. Those are deeply unpopular positions. And the Democrats are like, all right, we'll get enmeshed in the culture wars and we won't even do the most popular things in the world, like raising the minimum wage, paid family leave, universal health care. I mean, Jesus, the public option. All of these poll at 67% or higher. And they're like, oh no, our donors don't want that. So this is all just marketing to cover up that both the corporate Republicans and the corporate Democrats are the uniparty, and they are backed by mainstream media. That's your collective establishment, and their job is to screw you. So the new strategy is let's screw them by distracting you with something a streamer said. Wow, who cares what a streamer said? And last thing, Elliot. So we're told by not just the Republican Party, but again, all of cable news, the most important thing is guilt by association. If Abdul El-Sayed ever sat next to Hassan Piker, campaigned with Hassan Piker, that's it. No, they are the same exact thing, and they have to be eliminated. Kamala Harris campaigned with Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney started a war that caused the hundreds of thousands of people to die. He brought torture back. He spied in on Americans, and he was at an approval rating of 9% when he left office. He's a war criminal. And the media's like, no, I don't see it. In fact, they were like, bravo, way to campaign with Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney. How's bipartisan? Oh, he's a torturer, war criminal, and murdered hundreds of thousands. Oh, yes. Did you hear what a streamer said though? Like, did he get anybody killed? No, but he said something naughty. Okay, and by the way, also the mainstream media. The Republicans are up Netanyahu's ass, right? That's our headquarters, right? They pop out every once in a while and they go, oh, Israel, war, yay, right? And mainstream media is like, oh, you're best friends with another war criminal that murdered 23,000 children in Gaza. Bravo, 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 right? But did you see what that streamer said? And that's how you know they're fraudulent.
Yeah, and also, I mean, in defense too of the Republicans, earlier this week, Senator Tommy Tuberville was on Fox Business, and they were talking about exactly what you were saying of how come the Republican Party isn't offering anything to working class people. And Tommy Tuberville did agree and did say, hey, you know what, we should do maybe one or two things for them prior to the midterms so we don't get totally creamed. So I think that's kind of funny that it's at least one idea that they have, maybe do something, throw them some cake or something, but also the whole strategy, in addition to echoing the Democrats in the last presidential election. I don't think it's gonna work here. They're taking a strategy from like Cold War era propaganda, but in addition to that, when the people you're going after are Abdul El-Sayed and Hassan Piker and Mamdani, another thing that they all have in common is that they're kind of charming. and they're kind of funny and they're charismatic. And so I don't know how well it's gonna work when you're trying to scare your constituents to constantly point to them and be like, these are the people you need to worry about, when you're talking about people who just look very nice and seem very nice.
So that Tommy Tuberville example you gave was hilarious because they're like, it takes someone to suggest to him, hey, did you ever consider doing something for the American people? He's like, oh, right, I knew we were forgetting something. Yeah, you know what, we should pretend to do something right before the election.
We'll think of something.
That's amazing. Well, tthank you for the confession, we appreciate it. Vote out all the bums. The incumbents are the ones screwing you in both parties. Bring in new people like Abdul El-Sayed. And by the way, again, we're fairest show in America. The Republicans just threw out Andy Ogles in Tennessee, who was a despicable guy. So voters, Republican voters in Tennessee, nice job on that, okay? So both sides, throw out the bums, get the outsiders. The media hates the outsiders. That's how you know the outsiders are right, because the media represents the insiders that have been robbing us blind this whole time. All right, so let's take another break. And when we come back, MAGA's turned on Mark Wayne Mullen. And why don't they like Waingro anymore? And then Laura Loomer's trying to take his job. And as part of that effort, she says the first thing she'd do is deport me. Fun. We'll be right back.
This guy, Hassan Piker.
All right, back on TYT. JB49 writes, and Trump is not just doing worse for Israel, Cenk. He's literally handing over all the private and public sector institutions to Israel. Yep, certainly the merging of our military technology and data is disastrous. And so, because Israel just didn't get enough from us. Micah Rosamilla says, Israel could assassinate an American on American soil and our own government would let them. Could? If Israel invaded Boston, Mike Huckabee would say they should take it all. He probably would. There's nothing that Israel could do. Like they could, on camera, Netanyahu would slap Huckabee across the face, and Huckabee would go, "Take it all. You did now hit my left cheek." Of course, and he'd bow down and start licking his boots. That guy sickens me. What a disgusting person Mike Huckabee is. That's like your whole job is to grovel to another country. When you're pretending to represent our country, what a sick traitor. Kevin Shea says, without identity politics, the right has no platform for average citizens. They don't want to raise the minimum wage, paid family leave, single payer health care, other than tax cuts for the rich. So that's certainly true of Republican politicians. And unfortunately, a lot of folks on the Republican side have been convinced of that. Danger Mouse 17 says on Twitch, 61 months with my TYT family. I can't believe it's been more than 5 years now. Thank you, Cenk, John, Anna, JR, Yasmin, Sharon, Snackson, Jordan, and everyone behind the scenes. I love you all, and most of all, I love the foundation of honesty this platform is built upon. Keep up the amazing work. Thank you, we appreciate you. And Art Guy says, Elliot's sarcasm is beginning to rival John's. Here. We'll be back. Back on TYT, we have been telling you about how they're flipping out over Abdul El-Sayed's victory. You can celebrate it by buying the AIPAC Tears mug on shoptyt.com, so that's fun. By the way, if you want to just help the show, hit the ring the bell on YouTube. It helps you track the show and when we're live, etc. So we appreciate it, guys. All right, let's go to the next story.
Listen, we haven't had actual immigration reform since 1959. There's a reason. It's political. Anything that becomes political, everybody in this room is political. We understand that. When it becomes political and becomes a red issue, a blue issue, it means it's dead. Is immigration reform possible? No. Do you really need immigration reform? Yes, you do. But can we work with the system we have? Yes.
Now, what's left of MAGA says he should be fired for that. Wait, what did he say? He said we need immigration reform. They're like, boo! Some are now calling him Mark Wayne Muslim instead of Mark Wayne Mullen. That's the Secretary for DHS, but he might not be for long. Laura Loomer apparently wants his job. And she has promised to do something to me and Hassan Piker if she wins. So you'll find out all about that from Elliot.
Yeah, we should not get it twisted here. Markwayne Mullin is definitely a Republican hardliner when it comes to certain aspects of his job. He defended, for example, the ICE agent that killed Renee Good. He opposes birthright citizenship, and he even called to pull customs agents out of sanctuary city airports. But he changed his tune a little bit during the National Governors Association meeting last week, making a distinction between legal and illegal immigration.
There's a legal system to go through. But if you choose not to even begin or not to change your status, even if you've been here 25 years, I can't help you for that, right? If you have a status change and you're working in your status change, so you overstayed your visa, but you're going through the system to change your status because you got married and you've been married to a U.S. citizen for 4 years, and you're going through the family visa system, you have no criminal history, you get picked up, and you're in the court system, and you've been showing up to your court dates, you're gonna be released. You may get picked up, may be detained, may go through that process, but you're gonna get released because you've been showing up, you've been going to your court system, your status is changing. If you haven't done anything, or you have a criminal background, if you have a criminal background, we're not making exceptions for you. There is no exceptions. Zero exceptions. If you're over here, you committed a crime while you're inside the United States, and you're not a citizen of the United States, you're going home. There's no exceptions to that.
Mullin even went on to suggest that immigration reform could help the economy.
If we're looking to grow our economy, then we need to look at making more permanent solutions on this. And getting the work, not the work, but the employers involved in the system. In order to do that, though, that takes coordination between labor. Our unions still have a say in this, guys. We got to get labor involved. We got to get industry involved. And we got to fill out where the holes are created, because this narrative that it steals American jobs is true in some industries. It's not true for all industries. And we need to pay attention and be sensitive to that as we move forward, because it is America first. We want to take care of Americans first. It's our economy, it's our homeland. But there's a way to utilize labor where we're not having the participation rate we need to, and we can plug those holes.
Now, for us, that sounds like a fairly reasonable and sound idea, especially when you consider that undocumented immigrants actually subsidize things like healthcare and Social Security. But for the MAGA base, this is the worst idea to ever exist. Multiple MAGA figures responded with outrage, including Steve Bannon, who told Playbook on Monday, Mullin is the wrong guy at the wrong time for the wrong job, a time when we need focus. We need to focus on mass deportations. We get an amnesty advocate. Right-wing podcaster Jack Prosobic also told Playbook there is a growing wave among MAGA to find a DHS secretary who puts deportations first. However, no one was angrier than Laura Loomer, who got on X to say, I am so fed up with Markwayne Mullin. In an effort to preserve his legacy and fulfill campaign promises to the American people, I'd recommend President Trump fire Markwayne Mullin as DHS secretary. He's done absolutely nothing to increase the rate of mass deportations, and under his command at DHS, the Islamic takeover of America is now on steroids, good Lord. Markwayne Mullin has shown no plan to the American people regarding how he will remove the jihadist threat from America. Our country is being ravaged by Islamic communists, and Markwayne is doing nothing to deport these enemy combatants who are chanting death to America on the streets of America. And if you thought that was all, no, it is not. She also followed up a few days later with this. I would like to be the new DHS secretary. I promise you, I will actually make ICE the paramilitary force it should have always been to round up and forcibly remove jihadist invaders and third world illegal aliens from our country. I will get the job done. That was something that Cenk Uygur here actually responded to, offering up a clarification. In other words, I will unleash authoritarian big government on Americans on behalf of Israel. I'll remove any American who dares to oppose a foreign government, and I'll tread all over you and make you serve a foreign nation. Big Brother brought to you by Israel first. And then Loomer made this threat. Don't worry, Cenk Uygur, when I am DHS secretary, you and your nephew, Hassan Piker, are the first on my list for deportation. I'm going to send you both back to Turkey. I'm going to make Turkey pay our country reparations for making us have to coexist with you for several decades. And I'm not even going to ask Bibi for permission, I'm just gonna do it. He can keep the $7,000. I'm doing this one for the love of the game. It's time for you and Hassan to go home. Good Lord. Of course, no one is actually taking Loomer seriously here, not even the Trump administration, and that's because Mullen is not even in jeopardy of losing his job. The president has confidence in Secretary Mullen and his entire administration to carry out the agenda the American people voted for. Sounds a little bit like a threat. Cenk, any thoughts here?
Yeah, so first off, let's start with Laura Loomer, then go to Markwayne Mullin. So she constantly in those posts that Elliot just read you and in all the other ones, she's like, okay, deport all the Muslims and the jihadists. Wait, where did that come into play, right? Like for right-wingers and MAGA, it was all about mass deportations in general, right? But here comes Israeli Larry to come in here and go, now remember, the main people we're deporting are people criticizing Israel. Wait, why? Where did that come from, right? And I'm just gonna call them jihadists. And by the way, a lot of Christians and people that were born here also criticize Israel. But she's getting her deportation list for a foreign government if she's the DHS secretary. Now you say nobody takes her seriously. And on this one, I hope not. I mean, that's insane to consider Laura Loomer for any job, period, let alone a government job, let alone cabinet secretary. But she does every once in a while go to the White House and fire anyone she likes in the Trump administration. So she is actually kind of a powerful force in the government. And then the media that barely even notes it. They're like, well, of course Israeli Larry gets to fire anyone she likes in the White House. Why? Like, why is that? Imagine if when Biden was in office, we had like Rando Bob left-wing streamer. Like, I can't name anyone because they're all more popular than Laura Loomer. So just like a microscopic influencer on the left who just comes and goes, fire him. Like it's impossible to even imagine it. So where does she get that kind of power? Obviously, there are other forces in Washington who like the bigotry she's pushing and who want to promote that. And then there are other forces who pretend not to see it.
Yep.
Okay, so now to Markwayne Mullin. So what is he saying? He's got one thing that he's saying that's legitimate, another thing that he's saying that's from a rational perspective, and then we'll talk about why MAGA's mad. So he's saying, look, I know these days politically immigration reform is impossible, but we should, if we could, have a rational system where people are allowed to do things in a legal way, but not in an illegal way. That's surprisingly non-insane, right? Markwayne Mullin is not known for that. He's known for being a hothead and kind of an idiot, right? But that's a rational thing to say. So what's left of MAGA, so that's like the thermonuclear Trump cult, right? Is like, no, we don't want rational. Okay, all right. So you don't want us to do any reform. You don't want us to pass any laws. And what do they want? They just want mass deportations. Okay, look, I get it, that's what they want. They're Americans, they're allowed to vote any way they like and say anything they like. But the great majority of the country does not want mass deportation. They wanted the border closed, okay? And so that's part of why Trump won. And we acknowledge that, we're rational actors, right? But mass deportations poll very, very badly, right? And that's why Markwayne Mullin's there in the first place, because they tried the mass deportations. They tried the armed, masked thugs in the streets killing Americans, and Americans didn't like it, right? But the remaining MAGA is just immovable, right? And that's okay. There's immovable people, in the extremes usually, and so, but they're not the majority. But the second thing that Mullin said is what's triggering some, rational people too, right? So he talked about like some industries need this cheap labor. Do they? Okay, so that was a little bit more complicated, right? Because we could just pay Americans to do it. Now, some are very hard. We've talked about this before in the farming industry. Sometimes you say, I'll pay $25, $30 an hour, and you still can't get people. All right, but that's why we need reform to have a rational system where some people are willing to do that job at this rate and others are willing to do it at that rate. But part of the reason we actually don't have reform is because those corporations want cheap labor. And if it's illegal, it's cheaper. Then they don't have to get process in, but now they're worried that they're driving away too many immigrants and they're not gonna have enough workers for the farms, et cetera. So that's why the Mark Wayne Mullins of the world, the Republicans, are like, whoa, 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 we gotta find a way to help our corporate buddies, right? But we can't piss off our base who doesn't care about our corporate buddies. So that's a real thing that creates conflict and that you could get angry about, right? So that's why it's nuanced and it's a little bit complicated, but the bottom line is, they just want Mullen to do the mass deportations. They're gonna want the next guy to do mass deportations. And the reason he's in there in the first place is because Trump and the Republicans realized that's just not gonna work. Too many Americans don't like that idea. They really hate that idea. And if you keep going in that direction, you're gonna destroy the Republican Party and you guys aren't gonna get elected to anything.
Yeah, I mean, the elected MAGA officials, I think, have done a great job too of they've funneled a lot of economic anxieties for a lot of Americans into one particular solution, and that's like a really enticing thing when you are struggling financially and someone on the television tells you that here is one particular problem, one particular group that would make all of your problems go away. That's a really alluring thing for people to believe. And I could be wrong, but my theory is that Mullins has actually read some of the data on undocumented immigrants because he's sort of hinting at it when he's going like, oh, actually, yeah, it's bad for some industries, but not all of them. Actually, on average, they subsidize, they improve economies. There are areas, there are localized areas where that isn't the case, but by and large, they are a net positive for this nation. But that doesn't matter when you are playing into people's emotions as much as they are. And also, in terms of Lord Loomer, I mean, this combination of Islamophobia and Red Scare stuff, doesn't make sense on its face, and I think we're just gonna see a ton of it as we continue to go forward. So,
yeah, last thing, guys, if you're in the middle or you voted for Trump and you say, look, I want the border closed, I'm not sure about mass deportations, and you're trying to figure out who caused your problems, to Elliot's point, don't look down, look up.
Yep.
Look up. The immigrants are coming with $0 in their pockets. How are they gonna influence anyone? Whereas there's billionaire donors that are just flat out buying our Congress. They're the ones that are causing actually your problems. They don't want your wages to go up. They don't want you to have health care. They don't want you to have paid family leave. They don't want you to have anything because they think that that's a cost for them. So they purchase our politicians, and that's where the corruption comes from. That's why you got to get money out of politics. You solve that, a lot of your other problems will get solved right along with it. But if you just want to blame someone who doesn't have a dollar in his pocket, you can. Maybe it makes you feel a little bit better, but it's not going to solve anything. All right, Elliot, we got one last story?
Let's do it.
All right, so here we go. I said Elliot, but as usual, I'm starting it. Okay, so drop site news with another brilliant article. This time, it turns out there was an Israeli spy inside the United Nations. So he's now the head of UNICEF, so I'm sure he's been fired. Has he? Let's find out, Elliot.
Yeah, all right, so who was this mole? Well, according to a series of hacked emails, UN official Yahav Lichtner reportedly gave Israeli diplomats UN documents. You're not supposed to do that. Lichtner got the job after getting a glowing review from Ron Proser, Israel's UN ambassador from 2011 to 2015. Multiple emails were obtained. On February 20th, 2015, an official of the United Nations Population Fund sent 2 Israeli diplomats an email containing a confidential report about a trip 2 weeks earlier to Washington, D.C. by Zaid Rad al-Hussein, then the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. For your eyes only, do not forward, Yahav Lichtner wrote to a then Israeli ambassador to the UN, Ron Proser, and diplomat Ronnie Leshno-Yar in a message that sent from Lichtner's personal email account, describing the report as a, quote, classified internal summary of Zaid's meetings in Washington. The meetings came at a time when Israel was facing an independent commission inquiry by the UN Human Rights Council over its conduct during the 2014 military offensive against the Gaza Strip. Here's an email shared in Hebrew along with the translation. And the translation of the Hebrew text reads, "Roni with great caution, for your eyes only." Below is the Guardian's inquiry and Rowley's official response regarding the listing. See the last sentence. The fact that the Guardian reporter contacted these two, Rowley and John, shows that the leak did not come from them. I'm betting on UNRWA/OCHA. Internal correspondence, please do not use /quote Yahav. Also, this type of communication was not a one-off. Over a 2-year period between 2014 and 2015, emails show Lichtner repeatedly supplied Israeli officials with internal UN documents, private meeting accounts, pre-release material, and other political intelligence, including documentation marked as, quote, strictly confidential, which was later used by Israeli officials to help shape their own efforts to both proactively lobby the US government and undercut UN initiatives they viewed as unfavorable to Israel. The communications showing Lichtner leaking confidential information to officials in the Israeli government come from a hacked database of emails from Prosser, Israel's permanent representative to the UN from 2011 to 2015. There is not currently any evidence that the leaking continued after 2015 or into his UNICEF role, and there's also no evidence that UNICEF knew about this when they hired him. The emails were discovered on the hacked archive of Ron Prosser, which were leaked by distributed denial of secrets and obtained by a hacking group with Iranian intelligence ties. So, what was leaked? Confidential report on the UN Human Rights Chief private DC meetings, strictly confidential UN daily security and political briefings, an unpublished letter from Secretary General Ban Ki-moon to Mahmoud Abbas, notes from Secretary General Ban's meetings with foreign leaders, early access to when a UN Gaza war crimes report would drop, and communications about a Guardian story about Israeli pressure to keep the IDF off a child rights violators list. Whole lot of yikes there, a lot of implications, at least a lot of smoke. Cenk, what's your take on it?
Yeah, fire him immediately. Why isn't he fired? There's an Israeli spy running UNICEF. Yeah. UNICEF's supposed to help needy children. Israel starves children to death, and this guy's helping them do it, and he's in charge of UNICEF? I can't imagine a worse person in charge of UNICEF. Fired immediately, but he's an Israeli spy, so of course he won't be fired. There's Israeli spies all over, but if you say it, they go, oh no, that's anti-Semitic. Except the brother's literally an Israeli spy saying, oh, I will work for the United Nations. Of course, I don't have loyalty to Israel, I have loyalty to the United Nations. Just kidding, I'm gonna betray you and give all of your secrets to Israel so they can screw you over and they can screw over the Palestinians. Why would you have that guy employed at all? So look, and then they'll say stupid things like, a dual loyalty is a trope. Well, unless you're a spy, in which case it's literal. Like what? He literally had loyalty to Israel over the United Nations, which is where he was working. So that is why we're, so by the way, he does, these kind of spies do massive damage to Jewish Americans who don't deserve it, right? They have nothing to do with this, they're not, but now people look at, oh, well, I mean, do you want to hire someone? Because look at this and that and the other thing. No, there are exceptions. But unfortunately in Washington and in places of power, your local dentist is not a spy. Okay, but to be in positions of power, there are tons and tons of Israeli assets. That is a fact, and it is certainly a fact in this case. And if anyone cared about what the mission of the UN is, what the mission of UNICEF is, obviously the spy should be fired, but Israel gets special privileges. So maybe it'll be considered anti-Semitic to fire a spy.
Yeah.
All right, everybody check out Elliot in Rebel headquarters. We appreciate you, brother. Now, when I come back, I'm gonna show you how Anna was part of the latest Iran Lego video that came out today. It's a fun little thing. And we'll talk a little bit more about the revolution and a little bit of a bonus segment. So members stay right here, but the next segment for the Lego section will be available to everyone. So everybody come back. Okay, back on the revolution, and I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, like you didn't know. So we're gonna have a little bit of fun with the Anna Lego thing, and then I'll probably rage a little bit more, and then I'll get to the bonus episode for members. So today Iran put out a new Lego video, and one of our own is in it. And so this one feels like an official one. I don't know which ones are official or not, but it's about 2 minutes in, and it's got a lot of Donald Trump in diapers, and we can't show you that because YouTube prohibits seeing the poo. Okay, but we can show you the Anna part. So near the end, this happened.
Say the real word, they killed the kids killed. Janu said complicated and kept the lid. They keep saying Iran 2 weeks from the bomb. Now your own people screaming, build it, stay strong. They ain't screaming for another front. They're screaming, free us from the stunt.
Okay, look, when you watch the whole video, it kind of goes by in a blur, but the reason it caught my eye, I already knew it was in there, but it caught my eye because of the background, right? You know, that's not from the TYT set, it's from Anna's house where she has her little home studio, right? And I'm like, wait, is that, oh my God, yeah, that's her. And then when you freeze it, you see, not only does it have that background, you'll see every once in a while when Anna's doing it from home, but it literally says Anna Kasparian on the sheet. Okay, so, and she said, they said even your own are saying, build it, stay strong. And so, of course, like the Israel First people are like, oh, you guys are in the video, it's terrible. Just because we started a war and we forced you into it, and now there's 18 caskets that came home and 600 Americans injured, and it's costing you hundreds of billions of dollars. Can you believe Anna Kasparian's against it? Yeah, and I'm super proud of her for it, right? And by the way, if both sides had bombs that were of the degree that Israel has, there would be a balance of power and we might not have had war. Instead, we don't have a balance of power and only Israel has nukes. And what's happened, Israel has attacked all of its neighbors and started 7 wars. So balance of power is something that is useful, of course, unless you're an Israeli, in which case you don't want that. You want to be, as Netanyahu said, the only regional superpower. That's what he bragged about after the Iran war started. And he said, you know, we got the Americans to start this war, so we're going to be the only regional superpower. And he said, we're going to soon be a global superpower. And that's why they're now saying, let's attack countries that are even in NATO, like Turkey. So I don't know who they, and we showed you evidence that they might have been involved in the 60,000 people that ran in from Morocco to Spain. So that's a Western country, a European country. So you know, Israel's very proud. We're going to be a global superpower. We're going to crush the Spanish and the Turks and other Europeans, and we're going to crush the Middle East. Yeah, okay, well, we obviously need a balance of power. So otherwise these lunatics are gonna run away with it. Now, I got Lego Fight earlier. We showed you that too, that was fun, okay? Now, they had a whole video about that, but I don't know that that was official. I can't keep up. I don't even know what official means, okay? I don't know who's doing the videos. You guys probably know better than me. Leave it in the comment section, or as we're live here, write a comment in for me and I'll tell you guys. But that one, the one Anna's in, is definitely one that is like the standard Iran, let's be honest, propaganda videos that they make. They just do it with Lego, so it's kind of fun, okay? And what's sad about it, honestly, is that the information you get from those videos is oftentimes, turns out after you look at it a month later, 2 months later, more accurate than the information we get from mainstream media in America. So look, both sides definitely do propaganda. The Iranians do propaganda. Do the Israelis do propaganda? Do they do anything else? Do we here in America do propaganda? Our government, our Pentagon? Of course. America's like, oh, there's almost no one killed. We mean 4 people, we mean 13 people, we mean 18 people. So almost no one injured. We mean 200 people, 400 people, 600 people. They didn't hit our ships except they hit our ships. And it goes on and on and on. So we try to wade past that propaganda. But they've done it, you know, whether you love those videos, you hate those videos, they've done a clever job of getting people's attention and even sneaking in some actual facts in their propaganda. Okay. Fun for everybody, you take it as you like, but I have to confess, I'm slightly proud that Anna's in there. How dare you? Yeah, okay, look, you guys can be proud of Jay Tapper doing Israeli propaganda on CNN. Okay, enjoy. Everybody, I just like that it's fun and it's a Lego video that everybody watches. So in terms of real world, we just want the war to end. That's why we get put in these wars, because we're apparently a rare voice for anti-war. Now online, there's a lot of voices for anti-war and we love them all, okay? And you're on the left, you're on the right, you're in the middle, you're anti-war, we love it. What anti-war means, we're for peace, we don't want anybody getting killed on any side. Right? What's hilarious about American propaganda is like, no, we want people murdered on the Iranian side, the Lebanese side, the Palestinian side. They should be murdered. Okay, but us, no, we don't want anybody killed on our side. Not exactly a humanitarian position. Okay, so we prefer the better angels in America, which there are tons and tons of. Look, guys, if all we did was got past our evil governments, the people of Iran and the people of America, there's no reason why we wouldn't get along. Tons of Persians love American culture. And by the way, Persian culture is amazing and a huge part of Los Angeles, let alone other cities in America. So there's no reason for anybody to hate each other than the evil men in charge who are all about power and more land and more glory to them, but death and destruction for the rest of us. All right, fun for everybody. Okay, now, what I wanted to end on is like, so today, well, earlier in the week, Abdul El-Sayed wins, beautiful day, but also William Lawrence, Donovan McKinney, and we're throwing out incumbents left and right, good day in America. And what got me in a mood today, and you might have noticed it in the first hour of the show, is that mainstream media, corporate media, is totally decided, oh yeah, the right wing trying to smear Abdul El-Sayed by saying he's a Muslim and he knows other Muslims and he's gonna lose, etc. Right wing media is problematic. Online right wingers and misinformation, disinformation. All of a sudden they love it and they jump in it. So it's just a unified front, right? Corporate media on the right, corporate media in the middle, whatever that is, all attacking Abdul El-Sayed. And guys, again, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't see every single thing, obviously. I just see general coverage. I see the stories that pop online. And so I'm not seeing everything. I'll read comments in the bonus episode afterwards. So if you got to show me, like, is there anyone in traditional media who's supporting Abdul El-Sayed? Like, I see nothing but attacks. He's gonna lose. And say, oh yeah, he did this, and he talked to that guy, and that guy said something, and the other guy says something, and 6 degrees of Hassan Piker, and there's this and this and this, right? I see that 24/7. Maybe there's all this defense of Abdullah I'm missing. Like I saw Axelrod kind of defend him on CNN as Van Jones and Scott Jennings pretending to be on the right and the left, but in reality working for Israel. We're like, oh no, you gotta bash him. Poor AIPAC. AIPAC's the real victim here, right? So there is no like right-wing media. We're used to that, right? We're used to the Newsmax guys and they're bought, paid bitches online being like, oh yeah, Muslims are rats and parasites, and can you believe this Muslim guy? And we should hate him. That's Tuesday. I'm used to that, right? But the guys pretending to be objective, I don't think they're any better. I just think that they do it in a far more sophisticated way. They do it in a way where you don't realize that they're being bigoted, you don't realize their agenda, and they all join along. So that's why there's 2 things we have to defeat to get our democracy back and to save this country. One is money in politics. That's how they buy ads in all the smaller races and the races that don't get media attention. The only thing people see is ads. That's how they buy elections, right? And the second thing is media. So look, this is not to say you should just watch Young Turks. I think we're the only show, maybe there are others, that say, no, watch a variety, right? And you'll get a sense of who's telling you the truth and who isn't. Try something on the right, the left, the middle, try different portions of the left. I like that. And I think that if you watch all the shows, you'll see that we're trying super hard to get you the right information. We're obsessed with being honest with you guys, but mainly it's the reason I bring it up is not because I want you to support our show or other left-wing shows, etc. I just need you to turn off the TV, and I know since you guys are watching online, most of you probably already have, but talk to your parents and your grandparents. It's not news. It's a marketing operation. The wealthy and the powerful have bought this incredibly sophisticated propaganda machine that's supposed to brainwash you into seeing reality from a different lens. So that's why the corporate politicians on both sides that have radical positions that are opposed to paid family leave, which represents 16% of the country, the media calls them moderates. And the 84% that want paid family leave, oftentimes they go, these progressives, radicals, right? So, but they don't explain that. They just keep repeating the lies. Joe Manchin's a moderate, Kyrsten Sinema's a moderate, John McCain's a moderate. Cornyn's a moderate. Because sometimes they call Mitch McConnell moderate. It's absurd. So you gotta explain to them that the whole point of that exercise is to not give you things that are true, but to give you things that are untrue. And so, and I say that, and I tried it in my own way, and it's not easy. So I have a lot of friends who are, like me, past 50, right? And we all grew up on television. So when I tell them cable news is lying to them, since they grew up on cable news, they look at me like I got two heads. They're like, seems a little extreme, right? They just happen to, think that, all right, we went over it already in the first segment. I've given you 1,000 examples of their hypocrisies, right? The same number of people killed in the West Bank, almost all civilians, as October 7th. October 7th is the biggest deal on planet Earth, and it was a huge deal. The same number of Palestinians killed, even more civilians killed, doesn't even register. Cable news is like, no, but if you find out what Israel's doing, you might not like Israel, you might not want to fund them. So we're going to treat the Palestinian lives like they're worthless. Well, what is that? Is that news? Is that objective? No, that's propaganda. So every time you watch cable news, you're purposely poisoning your mind with framing that is meant to deceive you. So let's try to get everyone we know off that garbage. So once they lose their propaganda machine, and look, guys, I'll say one last thing, in a way that I think that will resonate with all of you guys. Who owns the giant media companies? Almost every one of those giant ones, CNN, New York Times, are owned by billionaires, okay? Now, do you think billionaires want to give away their wealth and power? Or do you think they want to set up a version of reality that protects their wealth and power? Do you think they want the average person to find out that the billionaires have undue influence on our government through the lobbyists and the donors and the PACs? Or do you think they don't want you to find out that they have undue and disproportionate influence? Obviously, they don't want you to find out. That's why they hire executive producers and managing editors and reporters and anchors who all say, no, there's nothing to see here. The people up top are not a problem. The donors don't have any influence at all. Israeli lobby, you're an anti-Semite and you should be destroyed if you say they have any influence. Of course they don't have any influence. They're doing it for fun and games. They're doing it for your health. The oil companies have no influence. We give them $35 billion a year for free. No, shh. We're never gonna cover that. Did you ever see that fact on cable news? That is an outrageous robbery of epic proportions, 10 times the amount Israel takes from us every single year. Yet, not a single reporter or anchor on mainstream media figured it out. They're like, what? I don't want to cover that. No, I want to cover things that divide you. And so once you're all divided and you hate each other, you won't look up. That's what the news on television is. And unfortunately in the big newspapers as well. They're good objective places like Associated Press and Reuters, filled with the wrong kind of mainstream media culture, but overall tries to give you facts, and you got to get the facts from somewhere. There's good independent media, Leverage, Drop Site News, and Intercept, Guardian. Those are the text ones, right? Sludge, and I hope I didn't leave anyone out. But there's other good shows, Democracy Now!, Breaking Points, Detail, Us. I hope, Kalinsky, etc. Just get news from people who are trying to be honest with you, and liberate the people that are on TV. Because if we take away their money advantage and their media advantage, we're going to liberate the country, and that's what this revolution is about. All right, guys. For the members, and if you want to be a member, hit the join button below on YouTube or tyt.com/join. Come back, read some of your comments, and then we'll call it a day. And by the way, next week, amazing guest hosts. So including John Kiriakou, he's going to be a guest host for us. So, and on Monday, Bassem Youssef, he's not a guest, but a guest host. So some excellent guests for you guys next week. So come back for that as well. See you in a second for the members.